"Hey, Jessie," Jake said to me while poking his head into my room. I laughed at his bedhead, his light brown hair sticking up in all directions. Apparently, he just got up from bed. He ignored my laughter and threw me my phone. I caught it with no struggle. "Andrew's on the phone." "Okay, thanks, cousin," I shouted as he walked down the hall. I put the phone to my ear and said, "Hey, Andrew." "Hi, Jessie," Andrew replied out of breath. His tone sounded worried. "What, Andrew? This is like the third time you called today. I know you miss me so much as my only beloved brother, but I'll have to say, you're becoming too overprotective. I'm fine. I'm definitely stronger now. Stop getting your panties in a twist and stop worrying about me." "No, Jessie, that's not what I want to talk about," he growled seriously. My mouth snapped shut, knowing what he was about to say was serious. "Is everything okay, Andrew?" I asked, sitting up on my bed. Then, I heard a door shut on his end and hushed whispers. "Andrew, what's going on?" I asked again, this time screaming as the talking on his end became louder. "Jessie, listen and listen carefully," he said. "Now, he's gone to a quieter part of the room. Brian just got attacked and he's in critical condition. He wants you to be here. You're his best friend. Actually, we all need you here. So, I suggest you get packing and take the next flight down here." I stood up and paced around my room as soon as I heard his words. "What? What happened, Andrew?" I gasped. My voice started to quiver. This was all too much to digest. I couldn't help but imagine the worst-case scenarios in my head. "Is Brian okay?" "No, we are all not okay, Jessie." Andrew's voice trembled at the end. I clutched the phone tighter, unsure about what he was about to say. There was a moment of silence before Andrew let out a sob. "Mom's dead." For a while, I couldn't even understand what he was saying. My brain was filled with blank and I couldn't find any word to respond to him. I could feel myself slipping into the same numb feeling I felt when my dad died a year earlier. All I could hear were the sounds of Andrew's choked sobs and a feminine voice soothing him. "No, this can't be true. I just talked to my mother yesterday and she was better than ever." I enjoyed the sound of her tinkling laughter when I told her that Jake's cooking was a disaster. I enjoyed the lame joke that she shared. The sound of her voice alone was comforting. It made me feel as if I were home. Now she was gone. "Jessie, we've just been attacked an hour ago." Mom, she took the bullet for me," Andrew continued to explain. I could tell he was trying to keep an even tone. "The doctors told me it would be a miracle if she can survive this, so I'm assuming that she is." He couldn't finish his sentence. My heart dropped into my aching stomach. "I'm sorry, Jessie." It's my fault again. It's my fault that led to Mom's death. I'm so... At the other end of the phone, I heard the slam of a door. A voice that sounded like Brian started to speak up. He said something to Andrew, but his volume was too low to hear for me. "What?" Andrew asked in shock. He choked and started to cry again. "What? Are you lying to me?" Brian's voice sounded clearer now as he responded to Andrew's questions. "Andrew," I shouted into the phone, knitting my eyebrows together in worry. "Andrew, what the hell is going on?" I kept yelling his name into the phone, waiting for his response, but all I heard was the door slamming shut again and a different voice coming from the other end. Tears started to overflow in my eyes as I recognized the voice. "Hey, Jessie, your brother went to go check on your mom," Brian said calmly as I began to cry. "Calm down, Jessie." "Brian, what's going on?" "Don't worry, Jessie. Your mom is fine. She's still alive. Trust me." Again, I couldn't find the right words to respond as my shoulders slumped and my eyes shut in relief. I began to smile and cry in happiness and appreciation that my mother was still alive. Andrew went to go check up on her. She made it. The doctor took the wolfsbane-laced bullet out just in time for her quick werewolf healing abilities to start working in her body. "She's fine, Jessie. She's just sick and needs to be treated for a couple of weeks." "Wolfsbane-laced bullet?" I asked in shock, remembering the bullets that were found in the guns my dad had stored in his warehouse. "Oh, come on, Jessie. You really are a poor wolf. You can't see the hunters that are hidden in the dark?" I shivered at the memory of his words, the way he tortured Daisy and my mom, and the way he hated my kind with a passion. Everything started to click together now. Once again, I hated myself for being the reason behind all of it. They wanted me, and since they couldn't find me, they were physically hurting the ones I loved. They knew they were my weak spot. I couldn't help the sudden surge of anger that ignited in me. "Brian, I'm coming home." I finally started to speak up, feeling the canines itch out of my gums and my wolf moving underneath my tight skin. "Coming home, Jessie?" Brian whispered. I could hear the shuffling of his feet. "Are you sure that's a great idea?" Harry is still hurt about the whole breakup and he's still... "Don't worry about that now. My mom is my first priority for the moment." "Okay, I'll call you back later to plan it out." "Sorry, but I have to go now. I need to deal with alpha duties." Brian said in a rush as I heard the door open on the other end. Bye, Jessie. Bye, Brian. I'd kept in touch with Brian ever since I've left them. Ever since then, we've still been as close as we were when I was still there. Brian has and always will be considered a brother to me. He was there when I told him about how I learned to use my hands to heal things. Yes, I was a hand healer, but I haven't perfected it yet. He shared my happiness with me. He was also there when I experienced the most painful heartbreak I had ever experienced 5 months ago. My heart constricted again at the memories. It was the first time I've ever felt my heart literally breaking into a million of pieces. It felt as if a cobra wrapped itself around my chest, squeezing the life out of me as I panted for more air. I remember the piercing screams mixed with the howls of my wolf that emitted from my chest. My body felt like it was on fire. I remember Jake and my other relatives surrounding me as I curled in on myself, hoping that the pain would stop. It was an hour later that I stayed on the ground, limp and lifeless with tears running down my cheeks. My mate had made love to another woman. Brian was pissed off and drove down for the weekend to cheer me up. He was about to beat the crap out of Harrison when he heard the news, but Betty, Brian's mate and Harrison's sister, stopped the two of them from getting into a fight. And ever since then, Andrew has ignored Harrison's existence. Both Avalon Pack and Raven Pack were mad at Harrison for doing what he did, but as for Harrison himself, he didn't care at all. I still love him, and I guess that was what hurt the most. Every now and then, I would feel the familiar burn in my chest. It occurred so many times already that my wolf learned to take it lightly, and eventually, we both got used to it. She was hurt, but she did not abandon me. If anything, she wanted to help me get stronger. Therefore, she helped dim the pain every time he would make love to another woman. The memory caused me to touch my Avalon-shaped mark that sat where my neck met my right shoulder. Tears rolled down my cheek. I missed him, but I knew he didn't miss me. I quickly wiped away my tear when I heard a knock on the door. Jake stuck his head inside. His hazel eyes showed concerned. I knew he wasn't going to leave me alone until I told him what happened. He was as stubborn as I was. "Just to let you know, I was eavesdropping," Jake said quietly and sat on the couch in my room. "You already know me, nosy." Jake Wood was at the same age as me. He hadn't found his mate yet, but he was so eager to find her. I knew that whoever his mate was extremely lucky. He'd treat her like a queen and would cherish her and spoil her. Jake was a healer of the wounded, meaning he could only heal cuts and bruises. He was stronger than I was in many ways, including his senses, agility, and energy. He's been training me ever since we first met, and because of him, thanks to his efforts, I was a better healer now. "I'm coming with you whether you like it or not," Jake declared. "All right, Jake, come if you want, but there was just one thing. He's not too fond of healers." I guess you mean that crank whose name goes by," Jake paused, directing it towards Harrison. "I don't care what he thinks, Jessie. I just want to be there for Auntie Angela and for you. That crank is not within my consideration. Jake knew everything about me. That included my heavy past about Lancetown. He knew about Scott. He knew about Brian. He knew about who were supposed to be mated to each other. He knew about my friendship with everyone in Lancetown. I wasn't overly excited to go back to Lancetown. Reuniting with my friends, my brother, and my mom made me all giddy inside. I missed them so much that I couldn't wait to see them. There was just one thing I wasn't so sure about. Harrison, my mate. He would probably be mad at me for coming home. He'd probably not allow me to be on his territory. Whatever he'd do, I wasn't too happy to see the man that broke my heart and the mate that I thought was perfect. I really don't know where this reunion may lead to, but I was about to find out soon enough. All right. Then you should start packing now. We are leaving early tomorrow morning, I sighed as I grabbed the dusty luggage at the back of my closet. Sorry, but I completely forgot to ask. I'm such a bad friend. I spoke with sympathy on the phone. I can't believe I forgot that Andrew told me you were severely injured. I was distracted when he told me my mom was dead. Don't worry, Jessie. I'm fine. Just a few scratches and bruises here and there, Brian said. When I was on the phone with you, I was much better. My wolf is such a badass that it's helping me heal a lot faster. Where are you now? I grinned and felt the nervousness bubble in my stomach as I passed the old worn-out sign that read, "Welcome to Lancetown, home of the mythical forests." In faded white lettering, the wood was damp, green algae covering the legs. I'd just crossed the border, I said joyfully. "Just hurry up and get over here, I need you." Brian whined. I heard a loud thump and Brian's grunt. I laughed, assuming it was Betty. Okay, babe, stop it. You know you're my one and only." "Oh, Brian, you are still the same as ever," I said as I laughed at them. "See you in 20 minutes. Bye." I finally made it back home and all the emotions were bubbling to the surface. Jake laughed as he rolled down the windows, letting the cool air blow through our hair. I sniffed the familiar green leaves, and the scent of both the Avalon and Stone Pack mingled in the air. "I love the wind blowing through my hair," Jake screamed, catching the attention of a few people as we drove by local restaurants and small stores. "Hey Jake, please slow down with my car or you may crash it. You know how much I love my Pegasus," I scolded as he turned sharply. I gripped onto the black leather-clad seats as he sharply turned another turn. "Pegasus aren't all that," Jake shrugged. "Just slow down, okay? We don't have to rush to get there, you know," I said, but that was actually a lie. Don't get me wrong, I was so excited to see my friends and family. I wanted to squeeze the living daylights out of them. I also wanted to hug my mom, to feel the comfort of her slender fingers playing with my long brown hair. I wanted to see for myself that my mother and my best friend were all right. Then there was the other thing that made me want to stall this trip back home. Harrison White. White! How would he react with my return? Did he even know I was coming back? What if he didn't love me anymore, or he wholly dismisses the fact that we're even mates? What if he has married somebody else and had his babies with her? The thought clenched my heart. "No, that's not possible," my wolf said. "Don't think like that." He'd never go that far. Jake sensed the worry in my voice and he looked at me. I'm pretty sure that he could see the conflict swimming in my green eyes. He sighed, slowing down until we were just cruising. "Jessie, you have to face him eventually," Jake said as he clenched the steering wheel so his knuckles were white. I'm surprised the wheel didn't crush under the pressure being applied to it. I personally can't wait to see his face with bruises on it. "Jake, I really appreciated that you're looking over me like a normal cousin would do, but please don't cause any trouble with him." I fiddled with the loose thread on my white sweater. "We ain't here for him. We are here for my mom and Brian. I just can't stand what he did that to you. A mate is a precious gift and he's lucky he even found his own," Jake said, envy dripping from his voice. "Promise me you won't cause any trouble?" I pleaded again. "All right, I won't, Jessie," he huffed. "You'll find your mate soon," I smiled, "and she'd be lucky to have you." Jake didn't seem so sure of my reassurance, so he simply nodded and shifted in his seat. We didn't say much and the car was silent. It was a comforting silence, though, as we were too absorbed in our own thoughts to say anything. I felt the nervousness deep in my belly as we turned into the street where the gorgeous pack house was located. Its huge structure could be seen from here with the smoke coming out of the chimney in gray swirls. It was a deep brown color with large windows and balconies. The Avalon pack had bought a new pack home, using the old yellow one as a meeting area between them and the Raven pack. They've decided to purchase a new one since, well, I don't know. Probably they felt like they were richer than before. Jake drove into the driveway, parking in front of the huge double doors. I sniffed the air, noticing that the Raven pack was here as well. The laughter and conversation coming from inside the house went silent as the engine from our car cut off. I wasn't even halfway out of the car when the double doors slammed open and familiar dark hair and rusted color hair came running my way. I shrieked when they almost tore off my baby's door and practically squished me to death. "Jessie!" Nelson yelled in happiness. "Finally, you are back. You know how boring it's been since you've left? I had to endure Jennifer and Betty's constant PMSing. Yeah, you know how hard it was to be in the middle of Jennifer and Nell's constant banter alone? I missed it when we used to make fun of them," Perry pretended as he was about to cry. "But now I'm not so alone anymore." The two boys let go of me and Nell smacked the back of Perry's rusted hair-covered head. I laughed at them and noticed Jake standing off to the side. He looked quite awkward. Since this is the first time he came to territory, so I guess this is the normal reaction for him. "Guys, this is my cousin, Jake." I gestured towards Jake standing next to me now. I pointed towards the two males in front of me. "Jake, this is Perry and Nell." They did a man handshake and started to haul the luggage into the house and up the stairs. I followed behind, hugging my arms to my chest. Sniffing the air, I only found the slight trace of the familiar manly smell that I missed in the time I was gone. My arms slumped in relief and disappointment. While the boys traveled up the stairs, I stayed behind looking at the pictures of the Avalon pack that hung on the wall. My eyes found a picture of me, smiling as Harrison held me tightly from behind as he kissed my cheek. It wasn't on the wall, however. I found it face down on top of the fireplace. My heart started to clench again. "Sorry about that, Jessie," I heard a familiar feminine voice say as she took the picture from my hands. She hung it back on its hook on the wall. Her crystal blue eyes showed concern. "I didn't take them off from the wall since you were gone. We haven't completely settled in yet." Betty lied and gave me a comforting smile. "You don't have to lie to me, Betty," I said, "but thanks for trying. Plus, you look like you're a clown on crack when you lie." "Oh, you are so mean, Jessie." Betty laughed and hugged me. I returned the embrace and laughed with her. "When did you get short hair?" I said, pulling back and playing with the black hair that framed her face in a bob cut. Since Nell thought it was funny to bleach half my hair in my sleep, Betty pouted and crossed her arms over her chest. I laughed at Nell's idiocy and ruffled her hair. It looks nice. I could never pull off short hair. Right when I was done saying that, I heard a warrior battle cry. I looked up at the second level, startled, and saw Brian climbing over the banister about to jump on top of me. Before he could crush me, I quickly moved out of the way with my werewolf ability and watched as he landed on his face, groaning. Betty rolled her eyes and helped him up. How many times do I have to tell you to stop getting yourself hurt? You're still recovering. Gosh, she's gotten super fast. Brian slowly got up, smoothing out his shirt. Well done, Jessie. I couldn't respond as I gasped in shock at the bruises on his face. His bare arm was covered in gauze, blood clearly visible. My hands trembled at the sight of Brian. I've never seen him so wounded and injured. I'm sure my face paled as tears welled up in my eyes at my wounded best friend. Brian, I whispered, coming closer and touching a bruise on his face lightly. What happened? I don't want to kill the welcome home vibe, so you'll just have to wait for the meeting tomorrow to find out what happened. Brian shrugged it off like it was nothing. He opened his arms and crushed me into his chest. I was momentarily out of breath when I hugged him back. I'm glad you're okay, I said, letting go of him and noticing the small smile on Betty's lips. She was happy that her mate reunited with his best friend. Of course I'm okay. Nothing could take me down, Brian hollered. I rolled my eyes at his cockiness. Yeah, right, Betty snorted. I've taken you down before. That's right, baby, Brian continued, putting his arm around her shoulders and nuzzling her neck. You could take me down anytime. Okay, my eyes are burning, I screamed, covering my eyes with my hands. The couple laughed and settled for just holding hands. I looked down at their linked hands, feeling envious towards their perfect relationship. My wolf howled, and I had to remind her it was my fault that we weren't exactly happy right now. I heard Perry, Jake, and Nell come down the stairs as they talked about the training Jake does on a daily basis. Perry whistled at the amount of work healers put into their training. Nell looked intimidated, but still praised the hard work and dedication that Jake does. At least Jennifer is not around, or else you'd feel like you were watching porn, Brian groaned. I swear, Nell and Jennifer have the worst case of public display of affection in the whole nation. I poked my tongue out in disgust as Nell turned the color of a ripe tomato. Where is Jennifer? Where is Jennifer? I asked. She went with Daisy to see Scott, Betty said with no elaboration. I quickly dismissed it with no questions asked. The tense silence that followed lasted a couple of seconds as they all looked at me. I cleared my throat and smiled. Guys, this is Jake, I motioned towards my cousin. Betty and Brian introduced themselves, welcoming him with bright smiles. Did you visit your mom and Andrew yet? Brian asked, concerned. No, not yet, I sighed, scratching the back of my neck. It reminded me of Harrison, so I quickly dropped my hand. I'm going there when Andrew calls. They went to the doctor for a daily checkup. You'll be staying here for a while, right? Betty asked with a warm smile, and I nodded. My room is being used as an equipment site for all my mom's medical machines, I said. I hope it's okay that I stayed. You're welcomed anytime, Betty said. In addition, Beta Nell gave you permission. As I was about to say something, I heard the distant sound of car doors shutting. The familiar manly smell wafted up my nose, causing my wolf to jump in joy. I froze, feeling my heart drop into my belly. My heart beat faster with every step that grew louder as he approached the front of the house. What confused me was the sweet, feminine smell that mixed with his and the heavier sound of footsteps that followed after him. I inhaled deeply, trying to recognize the smell. However, I couldn't. I shrugged it off. It was probably a new werewolf. Everyone around me watched me with wary eyes. Jake stood behind me as we all awaited the presence of my mate. I really didn't want this moment to come so soon, but I quickly closed my eyes knowing I had to encounter him sometime. When I opened my eyes, there he was staring back at me with his crystal blue eyes that darkened like a storm. I could see all the emotions that flickered in them. He opened his mouth to say something, but he was at a loss of words. He was still as handsome as before with his black hair cut short, his prominent jawline, his sculpted cheekbones, and his muscled arms I remembered myself being wrapped in. My wolf demanded that I embrace my mate now, but I followed the same muscled arms that used to hold me and found that his hand was intertwined with a smaller hand. My world collapsed as I saw the woman next to Harrison. She was around my age and she was extremely pretty. Her light brown hair was in a loose side braid, her shorter hair framing her heart-shaped face. She looked happy to see me as her lips pulled into a big, welcoming smile. She was average. She wasn't a someone who I'd imagined to see wrapping her arms around Harrison. She was just a normal human. For a couple of seconds, it was quiet as I swallowed in on myself. I could literally feel my heart breaking in two. My vision started to blur, but I blinked back the tears and plastered on a fake smile. "Hello, Harrison," I addressed formally, and his expression never changed. He still looked at me with all the emotions flickering on his face. "This is Jake Woods, my cousin." I looked up at Jake to see his lips set in a thin line. His light brown eyes had darkened in anger. "Calm down, Jake." "You promised," I spoke through the mind link. He didn't listen, but stared at Harrison as if he wanted to kill him right there. "Baby, are you okay?" The female next to Harrison put a hand on his shoulder in worry. I held in the growl that dared to escape my lips. That seemed to snap Harrison out of whatever he was thinking. He ran his hand in his hair before glancing at me again. He, too, plastered on a fake smile as he spoke. "Welcome back, Jessica." I cringed when he said my full name. His smooth and deep voice brought back memories of when he used to tease me, tell me stories, and whisper adoring words in my ear. I shook it off. "Jake, welcome to Lancetown." Jake shifted his weight, but didn't say anything. "Ah," Harrison continued, still wearing that fake smile. "This is Sarah Price, my girlfriend." "Nice to meet you," I forced out. "I'll see you guys at dinner." "I'm going to go, unpack my stuff. Do you need help?" Betty asked, her voice soothing. I didn't dare look at anyone else in the room, afraid that if I met their sympathetic eyes, I would burst. No? Thank you." Walking past Harrison and into the corridor where the stairs were located, I felt the tears roll down my face and heard the whimper of my wolf. She cried too. Even if I sat as far away as possible, I was still aware of his every movement. Usually, I would bathe in his manly smell that engulfed me for the past 2 hours. I would bury myself in my favorite scent, content and happy. However, it felt suffocating when I reminded myself that we weren't together anymore or he didn't want me. Harrison was quiet, occasionally looking in my direction. My wolf would purr every time he secretly glanced at us. Us! My hands itched to wipe the food that smeared on the corner of his mouth. Whenever I was aware that Sarah entwined her hands with his own, I had to stop the growl that wanted to escape from my lips. "Jessie," Perry groaned, smacking his forehead with his hand. "Please tell them to stop." I laughed when he motioned towards a bickering Jennifer and Nell. They sat across each other, leaning forward in the heat of the moment. Jake, who sat next to Nell, stared at them with wide eyes. "Listen to me, Nelson Cooper," Jennifer scolded angrily, her face turning red. "Only if you promise to talk dirty, babe," Nell winked, crossing his arms over his chest. His gray eyes danced with amusement while Jennifer's green eyes glared at him. Jennifer twirled a piece of her long blonde hair before biting her lip suggestively. She looked down at Nell's lips. Slowly dragging her gaze to look straight into his eyes, she smiled seductively. I held back my laughter when Nell's eyes widened before darkening. "Why don't we?" Jennifer said sweetly before someone interrupted her again. "Oh gosh!" Perry cried, gripping his hair with both his hands. "Please, not again." However, the couple ignored his comment. "Why don't we go to your room?" Jennifer said suggestively before her voice went harsh. "So that way I could suffocate you with all your pillows." "Oh, come on." Nell leaned back, still smiling at Jennifer. "You know you love me." "Shut up, lover boy," Jennifer said before returning her gaze towards me. "Where's Betty and Brian? They sure are taking long with the dessert." In that precise moment, we heard glass shattering inside the kitchen. We all laughed when Brian yelled, "Ouch!" "Gosh, Betty, it was an accident. That was my favorite glass bowl," Betty retorted. "Because you are so vertically challenged, you ruined it. Are you calling me clumsy?" My eyes landed on Daisy, Harrison, and Sarah. Daisy and Harrison were deep in conversation, probably discussing about Scott's well-being. Sarah stared down at her porcelain plate, playing with her food. "Jessie," Jennifer whispered so only I could hear. "I'm sorry about what happened." "You didn't do anything, Jennifer," I said, smiling at her. "It's fine. If he's happy, then I'm happy for him." "Harrison obviously doesn't see what a great girl he was blessed with," Jennifer said angrily. "He doesn't deserve you at all. Jennifer, I wanted the breakup. Not him, so he's not at fault. But still, he doesn't need to be gallivanting with other girls when he found his mate, does he?" I stayed quiet for several seconds before voicing the question that has been haunting my mind for a while. "Does she know about us?" Jennifer shook her head. "I think it's better that way," she whispered. She looked over my head, her eyes widening slightly. Oh no. I looked back to see Sarah coming towards us. She sat in Betty's chair, which was next to me, with a friendly smile on her face. "Hi, guys," she said. "Hi, guys," Sarah said to Jennifer and me with a friendly smile on her face. "Stop it," I said to my growling wolf. "Being jealous won't be of any use." "Hi, Sarah," Jennifer said stiffly, plastering a fake smile on her face. She was interrupted when a crumpled napkin hit her cheek. Her smile fell and she turned to glare at Nell's smug face. "You're such an attention-seeker, drama queen." Perry and Jake groaned as the couple argued again. "Hey, Sarah," I said, turning back to Sarah with the friendliest expression I could muster. I probably looked like a hyperactive chipmunk, but it was better than being stoic. "Jessie," she returned. "It's nice to finally meet you. Your group of friends had many good things to say about you. I was excited to meet you from the way they described you." "Oh, that's good, I hope," I laughed awkwardly. Although Sarah was being immensely nice and kind, I couldn't help but feel awkward around her. She was dating the man that was made for me, my soulmate. My soulmate. She loved my first love, my current love, and the person I will love forever no matter the circumstances. "From the way your friends talked about you, I don't think there was anything bad to say," she laughed. "Good, because I would have smacked them all," I said jokingly. I noticed Harrison was staring at me. I somehow feel like he was still in love with me. No way. That must be my pitiful imagination. Sarah looked at him and he removed his gaze away from me. It made me wonder if she knew about me and Harrison's past. "So," I cleared my throat, "you and Harrison, huh?" "Yeah," she gushed like a girly teenager. "We've been together for 6 months. Even if I prepared myself for her answer, it still caused my stomach to twist into an agonizing knot. My wolf howled at the thought of her mate being with someone else. I ignored the growing ache in my chest and quickly shook off the feelings before Sarah saw. "That's great," I said brightly, although I wasn't feeling so bright at the moment. "He's the best," she continued to gush. "I'm so lucky that he's my boyfriend. He's really sweet, funny, and gosh, is he handsome." "I'm happy for you two," I exclaimed. My statement was half true. I was happy that Harrison was happy. "How did you guys meet?" As cliché as it sounds, I was walking to the store when I bumped into him. From there, our journey started. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes at her. She was one heck of a vulnerable, hopeless romantic. I didn't know what to say next, because of my raging jealousy. I wasn't going to lie and say I wasn't jealous. I also wasn't going to lie and say Holly wasn't a friendly girl just because I envied her relationship with my soulmate. The hard truth was, Harrison had found a girl worth keeping. "The dessert is finally ready," Betty sang, saving me from responding to Sarah. "Sorry it took so long." Brian here was no help at all. "I did mostly everything," he cried, following behind her. He held a huge cake in his hands, and I resisted the urge to attack it. They knew how much I loved carrot cake, and there it was, glorious on the porcelain platter. "I iced it," I piped out the letter, "and I even baked it. Sorry, dear, but you are one horrible cook." Anyways, Betty digressed, straying away from her embarrassment. "We made Jessie's favorite cake to welcome Jessie and Jake." "You guys are too kind," I said, shooting appreciative smiles towards Betty and Brian. I looked at everyone, including Harrison, in the eyes with gratitude. "Thank you for welcoming me back and being friendly towards my cousin, although he is a little slow." "Hey," Jake warned. "I've missed you guys a whole lot, and I'm glad that I'm here right now. You guys have been amazing friends. Actually, you all are like my family, and you will always be my family," I said honestly, while everyone at the table awed. "Hey, is this the end of this world?" Brian asked jokingly. "I've never seen Jessie be so nice." "I suppose it is then," Nell and Perry said in unison. "We've missed you," Daisy said, pushing her platinum blonde hair out of her face to give me a warm smile. "Welcome to Lancetown, Jake." "Thank you," Jake said, smiling. "Thank you for taking me in." "Oh, we'll take you in any time, handsome," Betty said bluntly. "I agree," Jennifer giggled. I laughed when Jake blushed and shot me a frightened look when Brian and Nell growled. "Oh, relax," Jennifer and Betty said simultaneously, laughing and giving each other a high five. "Welcome back, Jessie," everyone said while Daisy, Jennifer, and Betty hugged me. "The fabulous four are reunited," Betty cried. "This is way too sentimental for my taste," I joked bitterly. "Whatever," Daisy said. "I know you missed us. You love us," Jennifer joined in. "Hey," I yelled when I saw that Brian already started eating the carrot cake. He froze with cream cheese on the corner of his mouth, brown eyes widening in horror. "You didn't just touch that carrot cake first." "Oh, I did," Brian said in a smug tone, taking another bite of the angelic cake on his plate. I poked his belly. "You better watch out. You've got big troubles." I lied. Everyone roared in laughter. "Oh, please," Brian said, not bothered by what I just said. He flexed his arm. The only thing that got big were these muscles. Everyone started teasing Brian, and the laughter and conversation just grew from there. It was loud, everyone fighting and joking with each other. I looked at my friends with a big, genuine smile on my face. Although it was loud and crazy, I was happy to be back home. My heart raced in my chest as the phone rang. "Please be okay." The knots in my stomach constricted as I tightened my grip on my cell phone. Shaking slightly, I drew in an unstable breath. I looked up at the dark sky, which was dotted with twinkling stars. There was a slight breeze causing a rustle to come from the millions of leaves in the forest behind the pack house. It was silent as I sat on the porch steps, waiting for Andrew to pick up. "Hello," a tired voice answered from the other end. "Andrew," my voice shook. "What happened? Why, you didn't call me. Did something happen with Mom?" "I'm sorry, Jessie," he said. "I just didn't want to bother you. I knew the pack's planned a welcome back dinner. Mom is my top priority. It was the reason I came here." "She's fine," Andrew reassured with a lighter voice. "The doc said she'd be able to eat right in a couple of days." "Can I visit?" I said, anxious to hold my mother in my arms. "Sure, you may even come over now, but she's sleeping," Andrew said. "Oh," I said, slightly disappointed. "I think I'll just come over tomorrow after the meeting. She's resting. I don't want to bother her. She needs to get some rest." "Okay, then I'm going over there to come see you," Andrew said. I heard the jingling of keys. He yawned. "I'm so sorry that I wasn't there to welcome you home. Andrew, just get some sleep." "I'll come tomorrow." "Don't worry. I would rather you take care of Mom than welcome me home." "Are you sure?" "Of course," I smiled, even if he couldn't see me. "Just so you know, I'm smiling right now." "That's right, kiddo," I heard Andrew's voice lace with happiness. "Hold your head up high and smile. Stand up tall and remain strong." "You are strong," I recited, remembering the words my older brother always told me when we were going through rough times. "You too, Andrew," I sighed, hoping that my brother was okay. "Are you okay?" There was a short pause before he sighed. "I'll be fine. Now go sleep. You must be tired from your road trip. See you tomorrow." "Good night, Andrew. I love you." "Love you too, my little sis," Andrew said before the line went dead. Tears slipped down my cheeks, wanting to embrace my family in my arms. I felt useless sitting here, crying while I could be over there to help Andrew take care of my family. There was only one reason that made me take residency in the pack house for my stay in Lancetown. I had a feeling that the only reason they were attacked was because of me, and I didn't need to lead any more danger towards my injured mother. "Are you okay?" I heard a familiar voice say. I closed my eyes, my chest clenching at the soothing male voice. Although I hated that he had to see me like this, a shiver went down my spine. I got up from my seat on the porch steps and turned to face Harrison. His crystal blue eyes still held a lot of emotion. He slightly flinched when a traitor tear rolled down my cheek. "I'm fine," I said distantly, walking around him to go back into the house. "Jess," he whispered. The pain in my chest grew, hearing him use the nickname he gave me. I closed my eyes once again, walking towards the door as if I've never heard him. "Jess," he said with concern. I froze when I felt his hand on my arm, causing the familiar warmth and tingles to spread all throughout my body. My wolf howled, wanting to be closer to her mate. I refused to turn around to face him. I felt the tears rolled down my cheeks some more. There were a lot of emotions surfacing now that I just talked to my brother, and Harrison finally wanted to talk to me after 14 months. "Yes?" I whispered. My voice quavered and I cursed myself for being so weak. "Can we talk?" he asked after a short silence. He dropped his hand. I felt his eyes burning holes in my back. "What do you want to talk about?" "We need to talk, or I think we should talk about where we..." Harrison sighed. "Can we talk about us? There's nothing to talk about. I'm fine with you hanging out with your little lover." I shrugged. Even if my back was facing him, I felt him flinch. "We need to talk about us, and I know you're probably wondering about Sarah," Harrison said, his voice trembling. "Harry, there's nothing to talk about, okay? It's my fault that we're not together anymore. I'm happy for you and Sarah. You deserve to be happy." I didn't give him time to answer as I opened the back door and entered the house. Once again, I walked away from Harrison with tears in my eyes. "First of all, please welcome back, Jessie," Harrison said to the crowd of people in front of him, motioning a hand towards me. "Also, please welcome her cousin, Jake Wood." The crowd clapped with bright smiles on each of their faces. It was rare to see a pack meeting with this much people, but the Avalon and the Stone Pack decided to have the meeting together today. It was also rare to see that the two packs got along well. They sat together, making small conversation. The men shook each other's hands while the women hugged each other. All 170 of us were cramped up in the meeting room in the pack house. Everyone shared chairs, kids sat in their parents' laps, the men stood to the side of the room. The representatives of the pack, such as Brian, Harrison, Nell, Perry, Betty, Jennifer, Daisy, James, Sam, Clark, Jake, and I, stood at the front. The only people missing were Andrew and my mother. The thought caused an ache in my chest, but I quickly shook it off. I couldn't wait to see them after the meeting. It wouldn't surprise me if I bolted out of the room before anyone else did once the meeting was adjourned. "I am Harrison White, the alpha of the Avalon Pack," my mate said, smiling a warm smile towards the werewolves. My wolf soared with pride at the mention of her mate's high title. He patted Nell's back. "This is Beta Nelson Cooper." "I'm Alpha Brian Smith of the Raven Pack," my best friend said and flashed a perfect smile. He motioned towards James. "This is Beta James Porter. James, Clark, and Sam welcomed me home this morning." Although they didn't really spend much time around the Avalon Pack because they couldn't really stand it, they were still great friends of mine. I shot a warning look at Nell, who looked like he was going to tear James into shreds. James rolled his eyes, still standing next to Jennifer. "You better stay the away from her, dude," Nell whispered only so we could hear. Clark and Sam growled at Nell, protecting their beta as an instinct. "Look, Cooper, Jennifer and I are just friends," James snapped. "I respect her decision to be with her soulmate. You have her now, so I don't know why you're getting your panties in a twist." To refresh your memories, James and Jennifer were in a relationship and were still in a relationship a year ago. A month after I left, Jennifer broke up with James, telling her she felt that it was wrong to date somebody else when she was blessed enough to have found her mate. James let her go. 2 months after that, Nell and Jennifer started their relationship. The alphas shot a warning look towards their betas, obviously telling them through the mind link that they needed to stop being immature in front of all of these pack members. After I left, I tried my best to hide what I was feeling and all my thoughts from Harrison and the Avalon Pack. They didn't need to hear my true feelings or my exact reason for leaving. "It's good to see all of you here," Brian continued. "We are extremely proud to be the alphas of such a dedicated pack. I'm pretty sure you are aware of why we called a meeting." There were a few slow nods, a blanket of fear and concern covering the people in front of us. "So, Alpha Harrison will explain further." Harrison cleared his throat before saying, "A few days ago, we were attacked by hunters in the forest with weapons laced with wolfsbane. From our discovery, they were customized guns, spears, and arrows to take down werewolves." There were a few gasps, including my own. The pit of my stomach began to hurt from all the tension and the fear that started to build. "No worries, there are no signs of hunters so far. They do not know where we live or where we walk. They just caught us while we were taking the special training that the representatives receive. Luckily, nobody was killed in this attack. We managed to take down the hunters. However, 2 people were severely injured. Please give a round of applause for the bravery of Brian Smith, who took a knife for his mate, Betty White," Harrison said with gratitude. I clapped along with the crowd, proud that Brian had done that to protect Betty. And to Angela Wood, who unfortunately couldn't make it today because of her condition. She took the bullet for her son, Andrew Turner. We are unbelievably lucky to have not lost such a brave woman. I felt the tears build up in my eyes, but I didn't dare let it fall. I smiled with the relief that my mother had made it, and clapped proudly with the crowd. "Are you okay?" Jake said through the mind link. With healers, it was impossible to block out each other. Healers were supposed to work together, and it was forbidden to deny each other. "Yes, Jake. I'm just happy that my mom is okay. She's from Wood's family," Jake said, causing me to smile even bigger. "That's my Aunt Angela. However, we are still in danger," Harrison continued bluntly. It was an alpha's duty not to lie to their pack. We got a lead on rogues helping these hunters take down both our packs. It is true. Rogues and hunters have teamed up. My mouth dropped open and there were loud gasps. The whole room started talking hysterically. Before it could get any crazier, Brian and Harrison said, "Quiet down." The whole room fell silent in a second. Jake and I were shocked, having to hear this for the first time. The other representatives kept a straight face, but I could tell they were as scared as everyone in this room was. "Why?" I blurted out before thinking twice, causing everyone to look at us. I was genuinely curious. I held my head high, looking Harrison square in the eyes. "What are their intentions?" It took a couple of seconds for Harrison to answer. He looked me straight in the eyes and then back at everyone in front of him. "We have something that the hunters are after, but never in a million years will I give it to them." In a second, the room was in complete chaos. "What?" a guy with graying hair yelled. "This is just ridiculous," a woman cried, clutching her 3-year-old son to her. "You would put your packs in danger because you refused to give something up?" Another woman yelled. "Enough!" Brian's voice roared throughout the crowd. It shook the windows, causing a silence to fall upon the room. Everyone looked down, ashamed and scared. I, too, shrunk back a bit from the authority in his voice. "It is too valuable to be given up." "What could it possibly be?" Jake said beside me, shock written across his features. "I'm afraid that is confidential," Harrison replied. "This meeting is adjourned. Please leave without drawing attention towards our pack house. In an hour and a half, the conference room was emptied out and everyone had left." Clark, James, and Sam had left. We all slumped down in the couches in the living area, deep in thought. "What do the hunters want?" I brought myself to ask my friends. "I have no idea," Perry replied. "Only the alphas know." At that moment, Brian and Harrison came out of the conference room. They looked exhausted and stressed. Betty stood up from her seat, hugging Brian to calm him down. Harrison walked towards the hallway that led to the front door. He was probably going for a run to let off some steam. "Jake, are you ready to go?" I asked, getting up from my seat. I really wanted to see my family. Jake nodded, following me to the front door. "That was intense," Jake said. "Tell me about it. Are you ready to see your mom? I can't wait to see her. I missed her so much. I can't wait to hear her compliments. I know what she's going to say already. She's going to thank me for being the doting cousin, and she's going to say I'm immensely handsome," Jake joked. I elbowed him in the ribs and laughed. "You should better watch out. Once she found out what you said, she won't be complimenting you anymore," I said. "I'm kidding," Jake said, throwing his arm around my shoulder. "I miss Aunt Angela and I really want to see her after the attack," I said bluntly. "Just say it, Jake. Avoiding it wouldn't change the truth." "I'm sore." He went silent when we saw the scene in front of us. I froze, feeling the familiar ache in my chest. Only this time, it was 10 times worse. I've always felt it when he kissed another girl, or the one time he made love to another girl. It was completely different when you saw it. It confirmed that whatever you were feeling was true. Harrison's back was faced towards us, and Sarah was on the other side of the door. She smiled, before reaching up on her tiptoes to peck Harrison on his lips. Although it was only a millisecond, my heart shattered and it felt like a cobra wrapped itself around my chest. I bit my lip, refusing to let the growl that threatened to escape. My wolf was outraged. Jake looked angry as he pulled me closer to his chest and pushed towards the door. "Excuse me," he said, rudely shoving past Harrison. He put me in the passenger seat of my Pegasus and he climbed into the driver's seat. He drove out of there as fast as possible. However, I didn't miss the hurt look that crossed Harrison's features when he looked at me. After a couple of Jake's concerned glances, I said, "I'm fine, Jake. I don't believe you. You're so honest with everything else except yourself." I flinched, looking at him. I could tell he was angry by the way he clutched the steering wheel tightly, causing his knuckles to turn white. "He's an asshole," he continued. "Forget it, Jake," I said, trying to change the subject. "No, Jessie. You shouldn't try to run away from your problems with Harrison," he cried stubbornly. "I'm not running away, Jake," I snapped. "If I were running away, I wouldn't have come here in the first place. And that also brings us back to why we came here in the first place. I came here for my mom, not Harrison." We arrived at my house in no time, the mini mansion looming over us. Jake and I sat there for a couple of seconds. Looking at me, he said, "You're right. I'm sorry." "Jake, you're just being a good cousin," I smiled. "So thank you for looking after me." "Always, Jessie," Jake said. "Now let's get inside so Aunt Angela could compliment me." We got out of our car. As we approached the house, someone opened the door for us. Brown eyes stared at me, his brown hair swaying in the harsh winds. His smile graced his handsome face before he engulfed me in his muscular arms. Andrew!" I screamed, hugging him tighter. I felt a few tears of happiness escape. "I've missed you so much." "My little sister," he said, pulling back from me to look at me. "You've got some toned arms. Did this guy—" Andrew stopped to slap Jake's head. "Work you too hard? She was a weakling," Jake said, putting Andrew in a headlock once Andrew let go of me. "She couldn't even lift a hollow block." "Hey," I snapped. "Stop exaggerating." "Boys," a feminine voice laughed. "They think all girls are weaklings." "Amanda!" I shouted out her name, almost tackling the petite blonde-haired woman to the ground. Amanda and I had definitely gotten closer when Andrew and her came to visit me 6 months ago. We went shopping, sharing similar thoughts and our sarcasm towards Andrew. She was like my older sister, which she was. To be precise, she was my older sister-in-law. Yes, she was human, and yes, she was mates with my older brother. "Jessie, you're going to kill me," she choked. I let go of her slightly before saying, "Right, you're human. Who taught you to be so cocky?" "Was it Jake?" Amanda gasped, casting a teasing glare at Jake. "Why does everybody blame me?" Jake pretended as if he was crying. "Because you're so dumb, Jake." All 3 of us said in unison, obviously used to saying this one statement to him. "You guys are all mean. I hate you all," Jake said, crossing his arms over his chest like a 5-year-old. "Anyways, Amanda is making food since Aunt Kara is on a trip around the world," Andrew said. "I'll take you to see Mom." My heart was pounding hard with every step we took towards her room. I flinched when I heard a strangled cough. Andrew put his hand on my shoulder, trying to comfort me. The tears spilled out all at once when Andrew opened the door, causing my heart to break. My mother lay in her bed, looking at us tiredly. Every blink was longer than it was supposed to be. Her translucent skin had sheen of sweat, although the room was cold. Her dry lips turned up in a smile as she looked at us. "Jessie, my baby," she said hoarsely. "Why are you crying? Come here and give me a hug." I came over to her, hugging her softly. Her arms shook as she lifted them slowly to go around neck. "Mom, I'm just so happy to see you." Luckily, there were no wounds on her face because that would have hurt me even more. I did not dare remove the blanket around her, because if I did, I would have seen the gauze wrapped around the area she was shot. "I missed you so much, Jessie," my mom said, smiling. "Hey, Auntie," Jake said happily, coming to give my mom a quick peck on the cheek. "Oh, Jake, you're so handsome," my mom said, patting his cheek. "Thanks for taking care of Jessie." I rolled my eyes as Jake flashed me a knowing smirk. "You're welcome. Anything for my family." "Have you found your mate yet?" my mom asked, knowing of Jake's conquest to find his mate. "No," Jake said darkly before joking around. "I don't think anybody could handle this much strength and hotness." "Better watch it, boy," my mom laughed tiredly. "Even if I'm weak, I could take you down. Why don't we let Jessie and my mom have a little alone time right now?" Andrew said, smiling at the two of us. "So, how are you?" I asked Mom after they have left us. "I'm fine, Jessie." "Mom," I said, fresh tears welling up in my eyes. "I'm sorry it wasn't there. I feel like it's my fault that you guys got attacked. I'm so sorry. You almost died because of me. I am the reason for all this. Nonsense, Jessie," my mom scolded. "Stop blaming yourself for things that you had no intentions doing. It's the truth. Give me proof that it is then." When I stayed quiet, my mom continued. "Jessie, you always blame yourself. You always tire yourself. None of this is your fault. Stop it. I got shot because I was protecting my children, and I would rather die than let my children die." "I love you, Mom," I cried, laying next to her in her queen-sized bed. "Stop crying," my mom said. "How about you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, clueless. Why would she ask that question when I was clearly healthy and unhurt? "I heard about Harrison, honey," my mom whispered. My heart constricted and my tears started falling even harder. Here, with my mom, it was hard to pretend I was okay with it. She would read the lie. "I don't even know," I blurted before I could stop myself. "I was the one who broke up with him, but I didn't break up with him because I didn't love him anymore. I broke up with him because I didn't want him to get tangled up with my own problems for being a healer. It hurts me to know he loves another girl. It hurts me to know that he's happy without me. It hurts me to know he's kissing and hugging somebody else. I'm pretending that I'm fine, but I'm far from it." It went quiet for a moment before my mother said, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Just remember one thing. What is it? Love is always going to find ways to kill people. That's the test. It's the test to see that two people will still love each other despite their challenges." While everybody was doing something productive and fun, I sat outside on the porch steps. I'm not usually one to wallow in self-pity, but here I was being a Debbie Downer. It angered me that I was being so weak and vulnerable, doubting everything in life and being such a pessimist. Despite my resistance to talk about Harrison, it did help beneficially. It made me open my eyes to the fact that I wasn't completely at fault for my heartbreak at this moment. It took my mother to realize what everybody had been telling me. He didn't have to get into a relationship just because I wanted a little break. We were soulmates for crying aloud. I missed him. I missed his warm hugs. I missed our passionate kisses. I missed his teasing and his joking. I missed snuggling up next to him. I missed the sparks that flew whenever we touched. I missed his laugh. I missed his arrogant smirk. I missed everything about him. What happened to us? That's right. I ended it. My hands itched to run through his perry black hair, which he still wore short. I wanted to stare into his blue eyes forever, knowing that nobody else in the entire universe would feel the way I did when I stared into them. I wanted to kiss his soft lips, anticipating the tingles that would erupt throughout my body in the next few milliseconds. He was an addiction, like my own drug, like my own coffee flavor, and you all know how much I love coffee. Ugh, I am such a hopeless romantic. "You just love him," my wolf teased me. "You have got to be kidding me. You have to use that right now? Seriously? Thanks for bringing me down memory lane," I snapped, remembering the first time that Harrison told me he loved me. Although it should have pained me, I couldn't help the silly smile that crept its way onto my face. "He still loves you too," she whispered. My heart thudded against my chest before I laughed at her. "You don't believe me? He has a girlfriend, and to think I was the hopeless romantic. You're even worse." "Growl! You're so girly. Couldn't you just growl instead of actually saying it? That's like saying OMG instead of saying oh my gosh. I'm telling you, he still loves you." Right, that would be the day Paula Deen stops clogging her arteries with butter. "You're such a pessimist, and you're a nosy gossip girl. Shut up. You're the one that's a female dog, literally. Can you just make up with him?" I miss my big dog. "Ew, that's what you call Harrison's wolf?" I scrunched up my nose before I sighed sadly. I miss him too. I swear, it's like I could smell him right now. His manly scent wafted up my nose, causing my wolf to purr in delight. I inhaled, drinking it up, drinking it up. My eyes rolled back in contentment and I moaned softly. "That's my favorite sound of all time," an amused voice joked. "That's my favorite sound of all time," an amused voice joked. I jumped a foot in the air, snapping my eyes to meet amused, clear ones. He ran his hand in his dark hair, giving me one of his genuine smiles. "Oh," he sat next to me, looking at the dark forest in front of us. I would have been angry that he approached, but there was just something about the way he approached me tonight that said he wasn't looking for a fight. For the first time in 14 months, I agreed with him. I was tired of all this hullabaloo. "Yes, I just use hullabaloo." "You're still as cocky as ever," I said, smiling slightly at the memories. Harrison smirked, causing my toes to curl. As cliché as it sounded, there was no other man that could measure up to his looks. He was excessively handsome to compare. "I see that you're still a cranky old woman trapped in a teenage body," Harrison joked. I sighed inwardly. He was still the same. He didn't change much after all. "Your comebacks are still lame. Come on, Mr. White. Haven't I taught you anything?" It's hard for a student to learn if he had a crappy teacher. "Touché," I smirked. "I thought you were hanging out with Nell." "Nell decided to cut up Betty's undergarments," he said, chuckling. "Oh gosh, that sound." It was music to my ears. I didn't want to be there when Betty throws a tantrum. In that very moment, I laughed at perfect timing. There was a loud crash inside the house. "Nelson Cooper," Betty growled. "You are such an immature brat." A high-pitched scream followed, a scream that only belonged to Nelson Cooper. Harrison and I erupted into laughter. Sure, it wasn't a laugh that made me hiccup, but I still appreciated the fact that I actually laughed in his presence. The silence that followed was actually comforting. I couldn't believe that we were actually having a civil conversation. "So, how's your mom?" Harrison asked, genuinely concerned. I didn't know what possessed me, but there was just something about him that made me trust him. "She's fine," I sighed. I just wished I was there to save her. She wouldn't be suffering right now. "It's not your fault," he said. Call me crazy, but I think he scooted the tiniest bit closer to me. "You didn't know it was going to happen. Actually, none of us knew. You should stop blaming yourself for everything, Jez." "So, you and Sarah?" I asked. Well, in actuality, I blurted it out. I couldn't help it. I couldn't contain the burning curiosity inside me any longer. In addition, I wanted to stop talking about my mom before I crashed down again. His eyes widened before he scratched the back of his neck. "It's nothing," he said simply while shrugging. I found his answer irritating and it angered me. I pushed my brown hair out of my face, sure that my green eyes were blazing with anger. "It's nothing?" I snapped. "What do you mean it's nothing? Was he using her?" She was such a sweet girl. For him to be doing that to her was totally wrong. She did nothing wrong to him and he was kissing her up for a heartbreak. You wouldn't understand, Jez," Harrison whispered, irritation blazed in his blue eyes. "Oh, please enlighten me," I said sarcastically. "It's better left unsaid, Jessie. She loves you, you know." My voice started rising now. I stood up, facing him. "And you had to go and break her heart." At that moment, tears started spilling out of my eyes. I rubbed furiously at them. In that moment, I was trying to convince myself if I was talking about Sarah or me. "What exactly are you trying to do?" I yelled. "Jessie," Harrison said desperately. "I'm telling you. Ignorance is bliss. I'm in no mood for secrets right now." "Why do you care, huh?" Harrison said, his voice rising too. He was so close that I could feel the electricity buzzing around us. I looked up into his darkened eyes. "Why do you care what goes on between Sarah and me? Stop trying to turn the tables, Harrison," I sneered, poking him in the chest. "Why do you care, Jessie? I asked you a question. Why do you care?" Harrison growled. "It shouldn't matter so much to you, Jessie. You're the one who broke it off. So why the hell should you care? Did it ever occur to you that I'm still in love with you?" I snapped, tears rolling down my flushed face. I shoved him in the chest and punched him from the built-in anger. "Just because I broke up with you doesn't mean you have to have a girlfriend." "You want to know why I broke up with you?" "I didn't break up with you because I didn't love you. I just didn't want you to get hurt and tangled up into my mess." "You want to know why? Because I loved you too damn much to watch you get hurt." I drew in a shaky breath, sobbing loudly. I didn't know if Harrison could understand me anymore with the way I was speaking. He didn't say anything, his eyes widening and staring down at me in shock. I was simply too stupid. I was even thinking that my own soulmate still loved me. Then there it was. The searing pain that almost made me die, Harrison. I almost died because you made love to another woman. "Does this mark mean nothing to you?" I asked, shoving my brown hair back and showing him the crescent-shaped birthmark on my neck. So, the answer to your question is pretty clear. I care because I'm still irrevocably in love with you. He stayed quiet for a bit before his lips trembled. I'm sorry, he whispered. You're not sorry, I snapped once again. My anger surfaced once again. If you were sorry or if I meant anything to you, you wouldn't have been with Sarah. Jess, Harrison replied, broken. Don't, Harrison. I held up my hand. Don't pretend to care when you obviously don't. You're still that playboy, and I was one of those stupid Sues who fell in love with his player ways. God damn it, Harrison growled, his eyes turning black. He punched the cement wall of the house, leaving a dent on it. I automatically flinched back, although I knew he wouldn't hurt me. If you still loved me, you would have faith in our relationship. If you still loved me, you would have made sure that you would keep our relationship alive despite the drama that comes with being a healer. If you still wanted a relationship, we would still liking have one. Don't give me that I didn't care for you when you gave the impression that you didn't love me anymore when we broke up. So stop being jealous of my relationship with Sarah. You're such an asshole, I screamed, shoving him in the chest. What the hell is going on here? Brian shouted, running out the back door. He put himself in the middle of Harrison and I. Harrison's eyes were no longer a crystal blue, but pitch black. His growls filled the silence in the air. Harry, Nell, Jennifer, Daisy, and Betty were watching with wide eyes from the porch. Jake stood at my side, glaring at Harrison. Step away, Smith, Harrison said, breathing in and out. This is a conversation between me and Jessie. This conversation has ended, Brian said. You need to calm this down. Whatever, Harrison muttered, looking at me before he ran off. His clothes shredded, his beautiful gray wolf sprinting into the forest. Jake, calm Jessie down. It was only then that I realized my fur was itching to escape my skin and my growls escaped low and vicious. There might be hunters in the forest, and the last thing we need is a dead alpha, Brian ordered. My blood ran cold, stopping my growls and snapping me out of my anger. I watched as Brian ran off towards the woods in his wolf form. After hearing what Brian said, I wanted to follow him to make sure that my mate was okay. Jessie, you're not going there, Jake ordered, reading my thoughts through the mind link. He was a higher healer than I was, so I was possessed to stay where I was. I looked at him angrily, storming into the house with fresh tears running down my face. I ignored the calls of my friends and cursed myself for being so stupid. Please be okay, my wolf whispered at the same time I did. Jake and I decided to do some investigation on our own after the reminder last night that the hunters and the rogues were still after us. After all, we were woods, and woods do not like to just stand around and wait for something to happen. Jake and I were taking actions into our own hands. That asshole was lucky that there were no hunters or rogues in the woods last night, Jake said, sitting comfortably in the passenger seat. Tell me about it, I muttered, clutching the steering wheel. I don't know what I would have done if he died. Jake simply sighed, staying quiet. This whole morning, he's been overprotective of me, casting deadly glares at Harrison. He complained more than I did about this whole situation. Everyone complained more than I did. Obviously, they weren't too happy with him at the moment. When I found out he made it home safe, I cried tears of relief. I was worried sick, and if he died, I would have hated myself for the rest of my life. I pulled into the small parking lot of the Big Calibry, one of the 3 stores that sold guns in Lancetown. We investigated one of the other 2 gun stores prior to approaching this place. However, it was shot down the minute we saw how rusty their guns were and how bad business was running in the place. I looked at the small, rectangular shop in fear. Leave it to me to think of the worst-case scenarios every single time. I was scared that somehow these humans would find out what we were. It was risky walking into a place with guns. We could be dead any minute if they found out. When Jake and I entered the shop, the small bell on the door rang informing about our arrival. My stomach clenched when my eyes saw the various guns sitting on the shelves and hanging on the walls. Jake, who always stayed calm, snorted at a picture of a man next to the bear he shot, smiling proudly. My eyes widened when it rested on spears identical to the ones I saw the night of the warehouse incident. Jake, I whispered, gripping his forearm. Those are the ones the hunters used when my dad planned the attack on us. His eyes widened slightly before he smirked. Then I think we found the right place. How could you be so… Hello, a raspy voice greeted us. We turned around to face a skinny man dressed in faded jeans and a flannel shirt. His dark curly hair was pushed under a blue faded cap. He smiled, showing a set of yellowing teeth. According to his worn-out tag, his name is Robinson. Do you need any assistance? Yes, Jake said, looking around the place with confusion. I don't know much about guns, but we just moved in with our family. We're trying to get rid of dogs that we've sighted in our backyard. We have a little sister, and we're concerned about her safety. What are your suggestions? I tried to hide the smile on my face. Jake was good at acting as well as lying. I wouldn't be surprised if he made it into Hollywood with his charming good looks and his acting skills. Ah, Robinson muttered, smiling wider like he knew something we didn't. Dogs. That is a big problem here at Lancetown. Follow me. We followed him towards a set of rifles hanging behind the register. He went behind the counter, taking a gun off the rack and handing it to Jake. Jake took it cautiously, examining the gun. Does this look familiar? Jake asked through the mind linked, fingering the black metal. No? You can actually smell the wolfsbane. This is not what we're looking for. It's just a regular rifle. So, why did your family decide to move to such a small town? Robinson asked curiously. Our father is a geologist. We move around a lot to small towns. We usually stay for 2 to 3 years and then we move again. Jake lied smoothly. How old are you, son? Robinson asked, scratching his wrinkled face. Are you aware that we can't sell guns to minors and you must present a valid gun license when purchasing a gun? I'm 19, sir, Jake smiled. He pulled out his wallet and showed his gun license to Robinson. This was the only thing that Jake didn't lie about. He actually possessed a gun license, but did not own any guns. So, tell me about these big dogs, Robinson suggested, leaning over the counter. Jake put down the gun and looked at him. Well, I don't know what steroids Lancetown feeds them, but they're huge. This one I saw was the size of a bear and it growled constantly. We locked up the house, scared that it was going to attack us. It didn't leave for about an hour, I piped in for the first time. Robinson looked at me with curious eyes. We called the police, but they thought we were crazy. That's what the police always say, Robinson finally said. They don't believe a single thing about those huge dogs. Great job, Jessie, Jake said excitedly through the mind link. You've seen these huge dogs too? I whispered. Countless of times, Robinson waved off. There was a mischievous look in his eyes. Have you guys ever heard of werewolves? What do you mean by werewolves? Jake asked, looking at Robinson weird. I almost laughed when Robinson smirked. Come on, kids, Robinson said smugly. You guys have a lot to learn. This guy is so gullible. Any werewolf could walk into here and find his secret stash of wolfsbane. Jake laughed through the mind link. He's smarter than you think. Once he finds out they're a wolf, he could just grab one of those guns from hell and shoot them dead in a couple of seconds. Oh, Jake realized, looking at me with fear. We followed Robinson, going through the door behind the counter. He led us through a long hallway and into a door that read, Caution, Electricity Panel. Enter at own risk. Robinson took out a key, opening the metal door. Jake said simply, looking at the wires and panel box in the small room. You wanted to show us the power room? Watch, kid. Robinson winked. He went to the far right of the small room and took out one panel from the wood wall. My eyes widened when a hidden white door appeared. Where are you taking us? I asked, pretending to be scared. It was all part of the act. I want to show you kids the guns we use to take down those big dogs, Robinson said excitedly. He opened the door, which had a small staircase that led to another door, a level down. We followed him in the dimly lit passageway to a metal door. You'll be amazed. Robinson opened the metal door and I cringed as the familiar smell hit me like a freight train. Each inhale burned holes in my lungs slowly. The amount of wolfsbane found in this room was enough to drain the energy from my body slowly. Jake cringed when he smelt it, grabbing my arm in fear. Calm down, Jake, I reassured him. You're going to make it obvious. Robinson turned on the lights of the room, my stomach twisting when it landed on each deadly weapon piled up inside the room. I gasped, lowly, so only I could hear it. This definitely is hell on earth. Robinson inhaled deeply and said, Personally, I love the smell of wolfsbane. What do you guys think? It smells like flowers. I'm not really a flower person, Jake dismissed, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. What's wolfsbane? I asked curiously, my eyebrows knitting together. It's a rare flower grown underground, Robinson states as if it was his prized possession. We boil it to mix its essence and herbs with the water. We soak the bullets and knives in them for a total of 48 hours so it is useful. I don't understand, Jake acted. What's so special about wolfsbane? Wolfsbane is a powerful medicine, Robinson smirked. We've been trying to get rid of those big dogs for years, but regular guns weren't working. We found out that once this medicine makes contact with those dogs, it is enough to sicken them and kill them. My wolf growled, but I forced it down. I wanted to smack Robinson for being so evil. After all, what did werewolves do to harm humans? Jake and I look at the guns, but we refuse to touch it. How much is your cheapest gun? Jake asked. I looked at Jake with shock. Play along, Jake linked. The AR-15 rifle is around $965. Jake whistled, running a hand through his light brown hair. That's a lot for a gun. We charge a lot because of its wolfsbane. Could we possibly get a better price? I asked Robinson, giving him a pleading look. We really need to get rid of those big dogs around our house for the safety of our baby sister, and we don't have the money. We were heading back up to the main store already, and I was nothing but glad to get out of that hellhole. Robinson was quiet for a moment before he walked us to the entrance. Well, my boss will be here on Wednesday if you kids are willing to come back and buy it. I'm pretty sure he'd make a deal with you guys. Jake nodded, looking over Robinson's head at a big portrait on the wall. There were about 50 guys with guns and big smiles on their faces. Do you guys have a mafia or something? Jake joked, pointing towards the portrait. Robinson laughed and patted Jake's back. That is my crew, son. We love hunting. It's our passion. Just the other day, we attacked those big dogs. We lost a few members of our crew, but that is our motivation to get back at those creatures. We have to do it for our fallen heroes. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. He talked about his crew as if they were the military, protecting the United States. At the same time, the hairs on my arm stood on end. Once again, we were faced with the reality that there were people who wanted to abolish us. Great, Jake plastered on a fake smile. We would love to talk to your boss. We left the store, driving away as quickly as possible. Jake slumped down in his seat, giving me a tired look. I can't believe we got a lead. All we have to do is meet the boss and see where to go from there. Yep, I said, popping the pea. That's what you had to go through? Jake whispered after a minute of silence. The tears threatened to spill any moment from the raw memories. I blinked it back, swallowed hard, and nodded. I'm sorry you went through a lot. I didn't know how to reply, so I nodded again. Jake sighed and decided to change the subject. So anyways, Nell and Harrison, he said on a lighter tone, spitting the name Harrison out, asked if we could show them the basic training that healers undergo each week. So we're going to train the representatives tomorrow morning. Oh, come on, I don't want to hit a girl, Nell whined, stomping like a 5-year-old. He crossed his arms over his bare chest, pouting his lips. The representatives of the Avalon and Stone Pack were giving Jake and me their undivided attentions. Although we were in September with the weather getting much colder, the men were shirtless and the women wore tank tops and sweats. Leave it to werewolves to sweat buckets with the temperature below 60 degrees Fahrenheit. My mind was still reeling with the fact that we found a lead towards our investigation. This was beneficial. We would know how to better prepare ourselves when the hunters and the rogues decide to attack us. However, for now, Jake and I kept our investigation between us until we get farther into it. That's not the reason you want Jake instead of me, is it? I teased, circling around Nell. You obviously don't think I'm a challenge. The first part of our training consisted with working out in our human forms, which most packs do. One thing we try to avoid is our animal side dominating our human side. That would lead to many tragedies and deaths. As healers, we start with grappling. I remember when I first started training with the healers, I was pinned down in a second flat. By now, I was stronger and faster. Therefore, here I was circling Nell while Jake and Perry already started grappling. Nell complained when he found out he was assigned to me. He thought I wasn't as challenging as Jake was. It's not that, Nell lied, eyes widening. I don't want to hit a girl. I used my inhuman speed to grab Nell's arm, pin him on the ground face down, and sit on top of him. Nell groaned when I pushed his arm farther behind his back. There were a few snickers from the people watching. Harrison's gaze made my skin tingle with heat. I tried to ignore it, but the lust in his eyes made me want to jump him right there and then. However, I had to remember that he wasn't mine and I wasn't his anymore. Just a little tip, I said loudly so everyone could hear. Do not underestimate your opponents. Even if they are girls, expect the unexpected. I wasn't ready, Nell defended, his words muffled by the ground. Let's try this one more time. I nodded, getting up to my feet and Sam the grass off my black tights. Nell lunged for me, but I dodged it. I yawned when I dodged another one of his lunges. I smirked. Show off, Nell muttered. When Nell got a hold around my waist, I let him tackle me to the ground. He smiled, thinking he got me. However, I took a grab of his arm and twisted it. He let out a painful groan before laying in the grass next to me. You're good, Nell gasped, shaking out his arm. He ran in the direction of the lake. When I looked at Jake, he moved on to Jennifer, telling her tips while she nodded. Harry had already started running towards the lake where he would have to swim 10 laps and meet the rest of the group in the woods to play a game of hide and seek. Hide and seek was another way of testing your senses. I remember the time that Harrison helped me train. That was one of my favorite training exercises. I quickly shook off the painful memories, smiling at Betty as she approached me. Betty and I circled around each other, her blue eyes shining with anticipation. When we neared each other, she made a quick lunge to the left as a fake. This caught me off guard. I moved to the opposite side as an instinct like she had planned. She quickly caught my legs in her small arms, tackling me to the ground. You go, baby, Brian yelled. You're better than Nell, I laughed when I managed to pin her down. Now, just keep that up and you'll do fine. Go run. Bossy, Betty smirked before saluting. Yes, boss. Ready to be taken down? Brian asked, smirking smugly as he approached me. Don't be so cocky, pretty boy, I smirked back. Brian was actually better than you think. He circled around me in his inhuman speed about 3 times. This was enough to have me confused. When I moved to get him, he dodged me and quickly wrapped his arm around my waist before tackling me to the ground. With my face in the dirt, I tried to wriggle free from his tight hold on my arms. In your face, Jessie, Brian hollered, his laughter booming in the air. When Brian felt my body go slack, he loosened his hold on me. This gave me enough time to turn around and slip from underneath him. When I was free, I grabbed his leg and flipped him in the air. He landed with a groan before I put my foot on his back. Tip, never trust your enemies, I smiled, laughing at him. That was no fair, Brian cried, getting up with a scowl on his face. It was fair, Jay, I rolled my eyes. When I looked up, Brian had an amused smile on his face. He pointed at my right cheek before bursting into laughter. You have on your face, Brian screamed. I felt the blood rush up to my cheeks before I wiped my face with my hand. That is not poop. That's mud, I defended, looking at the mud on my face. Whatever you say, seek a face, Brian smirked, running away before I could hit him. I took my towel from the ground, wiping the mud off my face before turning to look at who was left. My body froze as Jake and I stared at an uncomfortable Harrison. So, Harrison said, looking between Jake and me. Go, Jessie, Jake linked. I could see the smug smirk on his face. I can't wait to take this dog down. I think he'd match a black eye. As much as I was angry towards Harrison, I couldn't stand to see Jake beat him up in anger. I didn't want Harrison to get hurt in all honesty. I was scared of what the outcome would result in after their brawl. Harrison could kick us out anytime. Jake would kill him. Harrison would beat Jake to a pulp if Jake angered him. Therefore, I did the unthinkable. Jake, why don't you start the training with the others? I suggested, smiling sweetly at my cousin. Harrison's eyes widened in shock. Jessie, what are you doing? Just do this, for me. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I need to talk to Harrison, I lied. If he hurts you, then link me, okay? Then, I won't hesitate to kill this ass, Jake said after a while of contemplating. If you hurt her, Jake growled, I will kill you. Harrison simply rolled his eyes. I'd like to see you try. Are you calling me out, pup? Jake seethed, walking up to Harrison. You're lucky Jessie cares too much for you to see you hurt, considering you hurt her practically almost every day. I cringed at Jake's words. He didn't have to mention that. Harrison growled when Jake walked away, before he lowered his eyes to look at me. When Jake was out of sight, Harrison stared at me with a look that I didn't even want to see right now. I felt like crying, the tears on brink of escaping. I held it in and stared right back. Harrison walked forward, close enough to grab my limp hand softly. I closed my eyes, feeling the tingles that shot all throughout my body from the small contact. Jeez, Harrison's strained voice broke through the tense silence. I know you won't believe me, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry for putting you through this. I'm sorry for hurting you. Suddenly, I felt angry. He wasn't sorry. If he were, he wouldn't even be doing what he did. You're not sorry, I growled, my wolf angry too. I grabbed his hand with inhuman speed and I pinned him to the ground with more force than necessary. I tried to ignore the heat that was around us from being so close. I tried to forget that he was shirtless and that my hands were pressed on his muscular back. I tried to smell the fresh soil and grass instead of his scent. I tried, but I was failing. I don't expect you to understand, Harrison groaned when I dug my knee into his back. He stayed there for a while before turning us around with his alpha strength and speed. He pins my arms above my hand, straddling my waist. You need to calm down. You're grappling out of anger. And? I growled, turning us around so that I was on top. I let go of his arms so I could throw my hands in the air in sarcasm. Is that a surprise? I pushed his face down with my hands, waiting for him to tap out. He didn't even budge. He looked at me with seriousness, before running his hands from my ankles to my hips, agonizingly slow. You need to calm down, he said. I froze, relishing the heat of his hands on my legs. The only thing separating the skin-to-skin contact was the thin fabric of my leggings. It took me a couple of seconds to regain composure, remembering what was really going on here. Now, I was furious. He was playing me again. He was doing all of this while he had a girlfriend who loved him very much. Sarah didn't deserve the same heartbreak that I went through. I growled at him, baring my canines. Harrison's crystal blue eyes widened before he turned around without struggle. I placed my hands on his chest to push him off, but I froze. My growls came short when I felt his face near my neck. I couldn't think anymore. I couldn't remember why I was angry. In fact, I think I forgot that I was angry when he placed his hands on my hips. Because my shirt rode up a little, his thumbs stroked circular patterns on the bare skin of my tummy. I drew in a shaky breath when I felt his hot breath on my neck. My hands on his chest somehow found its way onto his shoulders. I gripped it when he ran his nose along my neck, inhaling deeply. "Calm down, please," Harrison whispered, kissing his mark. I shuddered, drinking in this moment that I have missed so much. He pulled away, looking at me with his darkened eyes. His dark eyes melted into his blue ones as he stared at me with longing. I could feel my heartbeat freeze as I saw him closer and closer. He stopped and just looked at me. I couldn't take it any longer. I lifted my head off the ground, brushing my lips with his for a fraction of a second. With the low moan that escaped Harrison's lips, I think I could die of cardiac arrest. The tingles and the heat intensified, and I could hear my wolf purring. Dropping my head back to the ground, I tangled my hands into his black hair. He looked at me, coming closer and closer until we were an inch apart. "Harrison? Betty? Is anyone there?" A familiar female voice called out. I could hear pounding on the door of the house. "What was that?" I whispered, brushing my lips with his once again. "I don't care," he said. "Is anyone home?" the voice said again. Then my werewolf hearing picked up its muttering. I swore Harrison told me he'd take me on a date today. The moment came crashing down like a bucket of ice-cold water. Harrison didn't seem to notice, still looking at me. I frowned, feeling the tears escape. I'm such an idiot. I fell for him again. "What's wrong?" Harrison asked, dark eyebrows knitting together in confusion. He brought his hand up to wipe my tears, but I quickly pushed him off. I got up and started walking away from him. He stayed on the ground, trying to process what is happening. "What happened?" Sarah's at the front door. "Don't forget you have a date today." I turned around to face him. He flinched when he saw my flushed face, tears falling freely. In that moment, I didn't care. His face flashed with irritation. When he was about to say something, I stopped him. "Forget what happened, okay? It was a mistake." I ran into the house and up the stairs, ignoring Harrison's calls. "So, nothing went wrong with you and Harrison?" Jake asked for the 1,000th time. He sounded surprised, looking at me over his sunglasses with skepticism. "So, how come the two of you disappeared after your grappling session?" "Nothing," I lied smoothly, feeling guilty for hiding things from Jake. Hey, they do say that ignorance is bliss. He had a date with Sarah and I called my mom. I wasn't completely lying. Harrison did have a date with Sarah and I did call my mom to vent out everything that happened. My mom just sighed, telling me that we wouldn't be able to fight this any longer. That hard truth scared me. "Right," Jake said with disbelief, leaning back in the passenger seat. "Whenever you're comfortable enough to stop lying to me, I'll be here." I gulped, staring hard at the road in front of me. Good thing we decided to discuss this while I was driving. It gave me a distraction and he didn't have to see the guilt in my eyes. "So, what do you think this boss guy is like?" I asked, digressing from the previous topic. I didn't feel like talking about Harrison today, and I didn't feel like dealing with him. I was lucky that we didn't bump into each other in the kitchen as usual, because I knew he wanted to talk about what happened yesterday. Harrison was one to look for closure and to clear everything up. I was one to run away. Jake was right after all. "He's probably some bald-headed man who wears Yankees caps and still lives with his mother," Jake said with disgust. "What vile humans. They attack those who didn't even do anything in the first place. Haven't they heard of animal abuse? You do realize you called us animals, right?" I asked, raising my eyebrows. "You know what I mean," Jake muttered. "I just can't wait to figure out this whole case, find out what to do, and bring down the people who hurt Aunt Angela. Revenge is not the answer. Aren't you angry at the people who hurt your mother?" "Yeah, I am angry," I stated the obvious. "But I never see the point in revenge. All it does is prove who the biggest immature one is. I want to end this fight, not give them any other reason to get back at us." After a couple of seconds, Jake said, "I guess you're right." When we pulled up in the familiar parking space, I stared at the small red and white building. Its sign was worn out, peeling red paint. The glass windows and doors showed the interior of the store. Empty guns lined up. "Who the hell names their store the Big Shot?" Jake scoffed. "Show-offs. You're just biased because these people are trying to kill us," I laughed, slightly cringing at the thought. "Come on, drama queen. It's showtime." When we entered the small store, a skinny man with a faded blue cap looked up from his book on the counter. "Kids, I knew you'd show up," Robinson called out in his raspy voice. "Of course," Jake said, plastering a fake smile identical to the one on my face. "How are you kids today?" Robinson asked, as if he knew us for a long time. "How are you liking Lancetown? Lancetown is interesting," I said, examining a picture of Robinson near a dead elk. "Sure is." Robinson noticed me scrutinizing his photo. He smiled at me, obviously proud of his accomplishment. That was 2 weeks ago. I shot it with my rifle. It was huge. It was the biggest deer Lancetown men have ever hunted. I was proud of myself for taking down that monster. Like I said, something must be in the water here. These animals are huge, Jake joked before getting back to business. So, is your boss here? Yeah, he's just in the back. I'll get him for you, Robinson said before disappearing into the back hallway. Aiden, the kids I was telling you about are here, we heard him say. When Aiden came out of the hallway, the first thing I noticed was the long scar across his cheek. No doubt was it from one of his hunter endeavors. His smile was big and friendly. You'd think he was one of those car salesperson who tried to convince you to buy the most expensive car in the lot. His brown and white hair was cut short and tidy. When he smiled, the corners by his brown eyes crinkled. He had the hunter's built. Hello, I'm Aiden, he said, sticking his hand out. Jake, my cousin introduced with a smile, shaking his hand firmly. Jessie, I simply said, giving his hand a timid shake. So, Robinson here tells me that you're looking for a gun because you've spotted huge dogs around your house, Aiden says, making it sound like a question. Yes, that is correct, Jake confirmed. Where do you live? Aiden asks casually. When Jake doesn't answer, I pipe in. Jake doesn't know Lancetown like I do, and I knew he would stumble upon that question. In 8th Avenue, near the forest? Oh, yes, there has been sighting there, Aiden says, still smiling. He turned back to Jake, patting a hand on his shoulder. You look like a strong man, son. My eyes widened, knowing exactly what he was going to ask Jake. It was written over his prideful face. Robinson was literally jumping in excitement, smiling brightly. Jessie, do you think I should join them as a spy? Jake linked. That could be a good idea, Jake. But it's going to be quite dangerous. Don't worry, Jessie. I will be fine. If we ever have a chance to bring the group down, then this is it. I will sell the gun to you for $500, but on one condition, Aiden continued. We need a young man on the group who's strong and healthy. Since you've seen the special guns down in the basement, we figured you'd be a great addition. The Lancetown men would be honored if you decide to join us. Thank you, sir. I am utterly flattered, Jake says, pretending to accept his goodwill. I'm quite delighted to be referred to as a strong man who's willing to take his own responsibility. So yes, I am here to join your group. Joyce is full of Robinson's face. Aiden shared a big smile with us, he said. I'm so happy to hear that, son. Come back here tomorrow, and I will recognize you as a formal member of us and give you some basic training, the man told Jake. Actually, I said, trying to switch the topic a bit so that we don't need to hear his so-called great course any longer. We just came here to share our gratitude towards the brave men who protect the community. Robinson told us about your massive attack a few days ago. We only noticed now that we haven't seen the dogs around. Gag. I guess you scared them away. Jake smiles, patting Aiden's shoulder this time. Thank you, Aiden. You are a man of bravery. I will come back here tomorrow. Robinson and Aiden nodded their head. And also, Aiden continued to speak up, taking out a small white card from his pocket and writing something down on it. Here is my number. If anything happens, just call me. As for the gun you were asking for, I will give it to you as a gift when you are done with your basic training. Good luck, boy. Jake takes the paper, stuffing it into his wallet. We mutter our goodbyes before shuffling out of the suffocating room. Piling into my Pegasus, we both sigh simultaneously. That was unexpected, Jake finally said, but he just offered us a great opportunity. An opportunity which could possibly bring down their group. Jake, promise me, just be careful, all right? I want you to return to us intact, I pleaded him. Don't you worry, Jessie. Didn't you hear him say? I'm a strong man. Jake, don't you find it a bit weird? When we first went there, we were asking for a gun, but instead selling us the gun, he offered you to join their group, and promised us that he would give you the gun after your basic training. Why? Yeah, that is quite strange, but I don't think he have figured out that we are werewolves. Well, I guess we'll see. Hey, best friend, I say, plopping down on the couch and ruffling Brian's blonde hair. Brian lowers down the volume to his horror movie while I throw my feet over his lap. When he pushes them off, I bring it back up. You're irritating, Brian jokes, poking my side. You're just jealous that I'm cooler than you, I smirk, grabbing popcorn out of his bowl, says the girl that was too scared to skip on senior skip day. Hey, there's a difference between being a delinquent and being cool, I defended. So, what happened with you and Harrison yesterday? Brian smirks. Don't lie to me either. Your scent was so strong on Harrison when we had our alpha discussion. Jay, I rolled my eyes, trying to push down the blush that dared to color my cheeks. We were grappling. Of course my scent would be on him. Yeah, that's what Harrison said, Brian waved off. You grappled with me, Betty, and Nell. Your scent wasn't as strong as it was on him. He was also distracted, looking like a lovesick puppy. You're imagining things, I muttered. Sure, I was as red as a tomato now. He was distracted? Well, you're blushing. Brian yelled, pointing his finger at my face. Spill. You're such a gossip girl. No, I just care for my best friend. Fine, I huffed. Well, most standings were getting pretty intense, but Sarah came in, which is pretty good. What? Brian smirked, obviously catching what I said. I didn't understand you. I sighed. We almost kissed, and things were getting pretty intense. I blame myself. I initiated it. Sarah interrupted our almost kiss, so it was perfect timing. I knew it. Brian smiled. Why are you smiling? Aren't you supposed to be angry or something? No, Brian said, shaking his head. I have a mate, and I'm kind of hoping you two will forgive each other like normal mates do. Whatever, I wave off, trying to change the subject. Why are you by yourself? Betty went somewhere, Brian said, a frown replacing his smile. Where did she go? She and Harrison went to visit their dad at the cell. The experts permanently locked their dad's werewolf abilities, and he's going to be locked up for life, Brian said, clutching his hands into fist. My eyes bulged out of their sockets while my mouth flew open. Their dad, previous alpha, was in jail? My heart pounded, remembering what Harrison told me about the man. He used to abuse Betty because she reminded him too much of his deceased wife. I knew how much Harrison was hurt because of his dad's doings, and it pained me to know I didn't know that his dad had went to jail. It pained me to know that something tragic must have happened that caused their dad to end up where he is now. Did he beat up Betty? Did Harrison have to call the experts on his own father? Right when I was about to say something, I heard the front door open and close softly. Brian got up to hug Betty, who sobbed softly into his gray sweatshirt. Harrison walked past the living room and out onto the porch with his head hung low. Before I knew it, I found myself sitting next to him on the porch steps. It was a comfortable silence. Hugh, it was a comfortable silence. The wind was a slight breeze, causing our hair to move around us. It took me a couple of minutes to talk. I was afraid to break the peacefulness that we actually had right now. I knew it was a stupid question, but I asked anyways. Are you okay? I muttered, looking at his face. As redundant as I sound, I couldn't get over how handsome Harrison was. Even when he was angry or sad, he was still as handsome as ever, with his defined jaw, strong cheekbones, and blue eyes framed by dark eyelashes that any girl would envy. His lips were set in a thin line. I'll be okay, he mumbled. I heard about your dad being locked up, I said. He nodded. Do you want to talk about it? I stuffed my hands in my pocket, looking at his profile. He hung his head down, before picking it up to stare at nothing in particular. I came home after a meeting with the representatives to grab some stuff Betty wanted. My dad was drunk as usual, slurring out and crying about how much he missed my mom. I decided to ignore it. I didn't know Betty was downstairs with him. She hasn't even been home since the last time he hit her. Remember when I told you about that story? He looked at me when I nodded. She was telling him that my mom was in a better place, and according to Betty, he nodded and said that Betty was right. He told her he was hungry, so Betty cooked him food. All of a sudden, I heard a huge crash and Betty screaming. I ran out as fast as I could. I saw my sister on the ground with the pan of hot food on her. She looked like a wreck. She was crying. Her hair was all over the place. She had a bruise on her cheek. For a werewolf to have a bruise, they must have been hit hard. Harrison's voice quavered when he talked about how he discovered Betty. I scooted closer, putting a hand on his shoulder for comfort. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, I whispered. In all honesty, I was scared for him to go on. It felt like my ears were deceiving me. I wanted to cry for my mate. I felt the emotions he was feeling. I felt sick listening to what Betty had to go through. It's okay, Harrison said. So anyways, I saw my dad with the pan in his hand. It was raised, like he was about to hit her again. I jumped in front of Betty, pushing my dad back. He stumbled, looking at me angrily. If he wasn't locked up from his werewolf abilities, he would have shifted. He started yelling at me for protecting my sister, the girl that was a stupid idiot in his eyes. Imagine what Betty must have felt hearing that from her own dad. I asked him why he was doing this to his own daughter. He only laughed and said that Betty made food our mom always made. Well, of course Betty did. She learned how to cook for my mom. When I told him he was an asshole, I told him that was the last time he was ever going to see us. I started picking Betty off the floor, comforting her. The next thing I know, he took the kitchen knife and threatened us. I pushed Betty behind me, telling my dad to calm down. He was angry, so he slashed my arm pretty deep. Harrison sighed, picking up his shirt sleeve to point out a light scar on his muscled bicep. Now that he pointed it out, I was well aware of it. I gasped lowly, picking up a shaking hand to trace it with my index finger. Looks like we had a lot in common. Both of our dads harmed us. Different us. Fate had a funny way of choosing mates for people. Soon after, an expert and Brian showed up in the kitchen. Betty later told me she linked Brian for help. The expert took down my dad, and because they had powers that we don't, paralyzed him. So that's how my dad ended up being locked up. We visited him today because the experts called us in for a meeting. Our dad was actually sober. What also was hard to believe was the repetitive apologies coming from him. Harrison sighed, breathing hard. He still didn't look at me. Before I could think twice, I wrapped my arms around his neck and hugged him. He was shocked, but he wrapped his arms around my waist. "You and Betty didn't deserve that," I said genuinely, still holding on to him. "I'm sorry it happened." "Thanks," he said when we let go. "So what's going to happen to him?" "He's going to be locked up for life." Werewolves are into family because they have this mentality that fate has given you a beautiful gift if you had a family. If you physically harm your loved ones with no valid reason, you committed a crime. How do you feel about your dad being locked up? He deserves it, but I also think it's good for him. He'll get better. How often do you visit him? Every month we have a meeting with him. It's harder for Betty. He did say a lot of nasty things to her. Betty is a fantastic daughter. Your father was wrong, I defended, sticking my hands into my coat pocket. Thanks, Jessie. Harrison smiled, looking at me. You're the only one I've actually talked to about this. You're the one who seems to actually care about what I feel. His statement surprised me. I wanted to ask him why he doesn't talk to Sarah about this, or why Sarah doesn't care, but then I remembered that she doesn't know about our supernatural being. So instead, I smiled back at him and lay my head against his shoulder. I don't know what caused my actions, especially since I wasn't on speaking terms with him just an hour ago. It just felt like the right thing to do, and I wanted to comfort him. In fact, I was tired of fighting with him and bickering. Why couldn't we just be civil? Harrison, can we be civil? Can we be friends? I'm so tired of fighting. I sighed, waving my white flag. Being friends was better than nothing. Harrison's blue eyes widened before a full-blown smile stretched across his face. I'm tired of fighting too, Jessie. Friends, he said, sticking out his hand to shake. Friends, I smiled, feeling a huge weight lift off my shoulders. There was one thing I've always wanted to talk to you about Harrison for a long time now. I've been itching to ask him even before I came to Lancetown. It was a question that haunted the both of us, I'm sure. What about Scott? I asked cautiously. Saw him stiffen beside me. Have you visited him? When I moved to live with the Wood family, I had nightmares every night. I was suffering post-traumatic stress from the events that happened that night. I remember screaming in the middle of the night, my relatives barging in with wide eyes. The wolfsbane would be fresh in my nose. The sight of my mother and Daisy flashed beneath my closed lids, their blood and bruises visible on their dirty skin. My father wanted to kill me, the cold blade pressing into my skin. My dad about to plunge a knife into my mother's heart. My dad dying. Scott wanted to kill my mate. It was a lot to handle, being in a situation like that for the first time. I genuinely wanted to know how Scott was. Last thing I heard about him was that he was in a facility, getting better. Apparently, he wasn't in his state of mind when he attacked us. He's going to be in the facility for another year before they release him, Harrison said, scratching the back of his neck. Do you know why he went crazy? He was injected with a type of herbal from an ancient book when he was depressed. This lets you turn off your human feelings, but it is also very dangerous. It causes your animal side to dominate and your negative emotions to enhance. Why were his parents killed? I asked him, looking at him with a torn expression. Healers don't just kill werewolves without valid reasons. That's why I didn't want to kill healers, Jessie. They didn't do anything wrong. Scott's parents harmed many people to get a cure for Scott's dad. He was suffering from a huge sickness that was going to kill him soon. Due to the many fatalities, they were subject to die. I just nodded and I felt bad for Scott. He was depressed and he was acting on a drug. He wasn't in his right state of mind and his parents were fighting for each other. Of course he would think it was the right thing to do to try and heal each other. He loved his parents and he had to lose them. He became depressed. Have you visited him? I asked Harrison, laying my head on his shoulder again. After a couple of seconds, Harrison sighed and said, No, I'm scared. There was a pang in my chest because of how broken he sounded. He's my best friend and I hate seeing him so weak. He tried to kill me and I know it wasn't on purpose. I knew he was angry because I didn't do anything about his parents' death. I should have done something. At least tell him what his parents did. He doesn't know about his parents killing humans. What kid wants to hear that their amazing and superhero parents killed about 50 people? I stiffened when I heard this information. So Scott didn't know the truth? That made more sense. I always wanted to visit him, but I just can't bring myself to see him, Harrison said. I studied him and I knew that if my best friend was sick, I'd be scared to visit too. So I smiled and nudged his arm with my elbow. Come on, we're going to visit him tomorrow. You need to see him. I know it's a huge weight on his shoulders to know that he did this to his best friend. You need to find closure. Jessie, no, we're going, Harrison. But no buts. I will drag you if I have to. I don't. It's not a good idea, but it's for the best. What about you? You're not fine with this, are you? Yes, I'm okay with it, I lied. Please, Jessie. I don't. You have to go sometime. Might as well go now. After contemplating, Harrison sighed. Fine. Although I was scared to see Scott myself, I had to find my closure with him as well. The West Mental Hospital was situated near a lake and a private property. The leaves were beginning to yellow. This area was clean and polished, considering it was an institute for the mentally disturbed. The building was perfectly painted, a warm beige color with its name written in black across the front entrance. It was fairly big, standing at 3 stories high, round curtains covered glass windows. Harrison had told me this was one of the 2 mental hospitals in Michigan. We were lucky it was only a 45-minute drive from Lancetown. Harrison also informed me that these institutes were in private places and all werewolf doctors here did have a degree. Harrison and I stared at the building for a few minutes longer before I muttered, "Are you ready?" "Nope." I was never ready. "You dragged me here," Harrison said, turning back to face my Pegasus. "Why don't we go back home? Scott's probably sleeping. I don't want to disturb him. No, we're doing this, and if we have to stay here for a whole night for you to finally go inside, then we will." Harrison groaned, stuffing his hands in his leather jacket. "Why are you so stubborn?" "I've always been stubborn," I smirked, pulling my knit beanie over my head. "I'm here, Harrison. I'll help you." While Harrison stared at the building again with fear, I slipped my hand into his warm one. I didn't miss the tingles that ignited in every cell of my body. "Come on, you could do this," I smiled up at him. We started walking towards the entrance, and I was pretty sure Harrison's hand was starting to sweat. I couldn't blame him. I was scared and nervous to see the person who tried to kill us. The double door slid open, and the lady at the front desk smiled warmly at us. Her black hair was pulled up into a bun, and her brown eyes calculated us. "Hello," she called out. "Hi," I said when Harrison didn't say anything. "We're looking for Scott Green. Mr. Green has a lot of friends," the woman said with enthusiasm while digging in a drawer. She pulled out a clipboard and a pen. "Please just sign in here, and before you leave, you must sign out." I nodded, signing my name in and practically forcing Harrison to sign his name. After we signed in, the lady instructed us to go to the second floor, turn right, and find room number 206. I muttered a thank you and dragged Harrison along with me. "I don't think I could do this," Harrison said, pacing inside the elevator while tugging at his black hair. "Harrison, calm down," I said, grabbing his hand and walking onto the second floor. The white linoleum floors were shiny under the fluorescent light. There was the smell of werewolf everywhere, mixed in with a slight trace of vanilla. The doors were a dark mahogany, numbers painted on the wood. He was breathing hard, and I had to stop to look at him. "Look, I'm nervous too," I said slowly. It was true. My heart was pounding against my rib cage, and the memories of him flashed through my head. I forced the vile images out of my head. Scott was better now. I just knew it. "So, why are you doing this?" Harrison whisper yelled. "Let's just go. Give your best friend a chance," I said comfortingly. He still looked unconvinced, so I tubbed his hand in front of Scott's door. I could hear the television on a football game. My heart was pounding, and I tightened my hold on Harrison's hand. Harrison stood close behind me, and I could feel his nervousness. I jumped slightly when I heard a familiar male cheer for his team, a voice I haven't heard in months. "We could do this," I said, glancing over my shoulder to look at Harrison. He looked down before nodding slowly. I twisted the knob, opening the door slowly and tugging Harrison behind me. Scott was in his bed, which was pushed to one side of the room. A lamp was on a nightstand right next to bed. Under the window was a desk with a few notebooks and pencils. A dresser and a closet was side by side. To the immediate right of us was the door leading to the bathroom. We walked in a little bit for Scott to see us. When his brown eyes met ours, it widened into saucers. His mouth opened to say something, but nothing came out. His posture stiffened, and there a million apologies written in his brown orbs. "Hey, Scott," I said, smiling when nobody said anything. I gave him a small wave. "I'm dreaming," he said, running his hand in his brown hair before pinching himself. "No, you're not," I laughed. After a couple of minutes of staring at us, Scott hung his head and started crying. His shoulders moved up and down, and he tried to muffle his sobs down. He looked up at us with tear-filled eyes. "You guys don't realize how much I'm so sorry," he said. "I'm so immensely, truly sorry for what I did. There are no excuses for my bad behavior. It was wrong, and I don't expect you guys to forgive me, but I'm sorry." I smiled widely at him, my own tears rolling down my cheeks. I looked up to see Harrison with a serious expression, staring at Scott. He still hasn't said anything. Gosh, I'm such a pussy, Scott said, rubbing furiously at his tears. I laughed lightly at him. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that to you, Jessie. I really shouldn't. I'm not going to try to make up excuses because that would just make me feel so much worse. Harrison, I'm so sorry too. I'm sorry I turned my back on the one person who has been there for me this whole time. I'm sorry I had such negative thoughts on my best friend. I just lost more when I did what I did. No, I'm sorry, Harrison said for the first time before giving him a small smile. I should have done more to help you. I'm also sorry that it took me so long to come visit you. I didn't expect you to come. I thought you guys hated me, Scott said, standing up from his bed. We don't hate you, I said before flinging my arms around Scott. I suddenly felt bad for him with everything that Harrison told me yesterday. We just want to help, Scott cried into my hair a little longer before mumbling apologies repeatedly. I patted his back, telling him it was okay. When we parted, I smiled widely when Harrison and Scott did the man hug thing, patting each other's back hard. Man, I've missed you, Scott said when he stood in front of us. Hey, Harrison said, slapping Scott on the back. I've got to ask you a serious question though. What is it? Scott asked. Anything. I'll try to answer to the best of my abilities. Do you know anything about the hunters that are trying to attack us? Harrison said, looking seriously at Scott. Scott's eyes showed it all. Confusion? Don't lie to us, Scott. If you do, he will be sentenced to death for planning a second attack on werewolves. Harrison, I gasped, looking at him sternly. No, it's okay, Jessie, Scott smiled before turning to look at Harrison. I really don't know what's going on. The only person I've ever talked to about attacking people was Jessie's dad. There's an attack? Okay, don't worry about that, I told him, pushing him towards his bed. Are you lying? Harrison said, ignoring my glares. He crossed his arms over his chest. Harry, I know it's hard to trust me with everything that happened. It's understandable. I'm telling the truth when I say I don't know what is going on. I swear to God. After a few more questioning from an unconvinced Harrison, I interrupted. So, how are you? I asked. Harrison took a seat on a chair near the bed while I sat on Scott's bed. Harrison leaned forward, concerned over his friend's health. Good, Scott said enthusiastically. They put me on some medications to drain out those herbs and I feel like a new man. Daisy and I are on the right track and I'm happy. I'm happy that you guys are here too. That's good, Harrison said. The only thing I don't like is the assignments they let us do. It's cheesy. Painting and coloring? I saw your smiley face out in the hole. Good effort, Harrison laughed. You've always been jealous of my artistic skills, White. I smiled when I saw the two best friends joking around. Harrison slapped Scott across the head and Scott put Harrison in a headlock. It was refreshing to see that they were going to be all right. Harrison wasn't going to completely trust him, and I wasn't going to completely trust him either. By being here, we were trying to find closure on what had happened that night, and we were accomplishing that task. After a few more minutes of small talk, visiting hours for the afternoon period was over. Harrison and I piled into my Pegasus, looking at the building with small smiles on our faces. I still don't trust him, Harrison sighed. I don't either, I said. But it's a start. It was nice seeing you joke around with him. Yeah, it was just like old times before he started getting depressed. He's getting better. I could see it. So how did you feel going in there? Harrison asked, slouching in his seat. I was scared, actually. I think I was as scared as you. I wasn't scared, Harrison defended, puffing out his chest slightly. I had to practically drag you in the room. If it were for other reasons, I wouldn't mind going in a room with you, Harrison joked, throwing a wink my way. Although I laughed at that, I punched his chest. This friendship thing is getting to your head, Dot. Oh, so the old nickname comes back, Harrison hollered, rolling down his window and sticking his head out. It must be a miracle, he yelled to the sky. She is no longer the rampaging woman on her menopause. I hit him again and he laughed. I'm kidding, Jess, he said, smiling at me. I couldn't help the smile that graced my face too. It was nice talking and laughing with Harrison again. It probably wasn't going to always be easy like this, but again, it was a start. We just stared at each other smiling before Harrison took me in his muscled arms. Thanks, Jess, he whispered. I mean it. Laza Tark, I muttered repeatedly, poising my hands over Jake's palm. Inhaling deeply, I concentrated on the task at hand. I opened my eyes to look at Jake's hand, groaning in disappointment. Why can't I get this right? I dropped my hands onto my thighs with a loud slap, throwing my head back in frustration. Don't beat yourself up, Jessie, Jake encouraged. Just try again. You're practically bleeding to death because of me, I muttered pointedly, sighing when I saw Jake's frightened face. We were in the kitchen, practicing my healing abilities. 14 months of training, and I still haven't perfected my powers. Oh! Every time I tried, I would fail miserably while Jake's wound would get worse with every attempt. It would usually go like this. Jake would randomly train me. He'd take a knife and cut a small slash on his palm. Before it would heal due to his werewolf abilities, I'd start with what I was taught. I would recite the words, Lancetown repeatedly with my eyes closed, trying to get in touch with nature. I don't even know what language those two words were from, but I do know in English it meant healing. When I'd open my eyes, Jake's wound would be bigger, bleed more, or get deeper. Obviously, that was far from being healed. That meant only one thing. I know! I failed, and I kept failing. Just try again, Jake urged again, looking at his bloody hand. You'll get it eventually. Are you sure? You just don't want to stop now? I asked, knitting my eyebrows in concern. He literally looked like he was in pain. Every time I'd ask him how it felt, he'd lie and say it didn't feel like anything. However, I knew it was either stinging, burning, or aching. I'm fine. Let's just continue, Jake reassured, holding his bloody hand out to me. He wiped off blood with the third napkin he used today. Okay, I said after a couple of seconds. I closed my eyes, poising my hand over his palm. Inhaling, I recited, Lancetown, Lancetown, yeah, Lancetown, yeah, Lancetown, yeah, Lancetown. I opened my eyes and groaned once more. The wound was leaking out blood. Lancetown, I concentrated. Lancetown, 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 Lancetown. I felt like crying when once again it didn't work. Banging my head onto the table, I whined. I'm such a useless healer. You are not, Jake scolded, wiping blood off his hand. Never say a healer is useless, even if you are talking about yourself. How come I always fail? You got it in a few weeks, so how come it's taking me so long? I complained, getting mad at myself for constantly failing. You just need to find yourself, Jake said. Maybe it isn't your time yet. You need to get in touch with nature. You need to put down the wall that's between the both of you. What the hell? How do you do that? I don't know, Jake screamed back, frightened by my anger. He looked funny with his brown eyes widening and his shoulders going up. I never had to go through that. I'm sorry. I feel so stupid. You keep teaching me and I never learn from my mistakes. I'm sorry, Jake, I said, tugging at my long brown hair. Come on, Jake sighed, putting his hand in front of me. Let's try this one more time. Fine, I huffed, closing my eyes. I concentrated hard, calling out to nature. Lancetown, 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 still bleeding. Lancetown, Lancetown, yeah, Lancetown, yeah, Lancetown. What the hell are you doing to Jake? A male voice shouted, breaking my concentration. I opened my eyes and groaned. Turning around to glare at the ginger, I crossed my arms over my chest. Why are you killing him? Perry yelled at me, looking at Jake's hand with wide eyes. Jake just smirked, amused by the situation. And what the so are you saying? Is it some type of witchcraft? I've always known you were evil. Gee, thanks, Perry, I replied sarcastically. I was practicing my healer abilities, by the way. Perry's eyebrows knitted together, scrutinizing Jake's bloody hand and the 3 bloody napkins next to him. His eyebrows shot up before he looked at me. You're doing a great job, Jessie, he lied. Perry was always a bad liar. He threw a thumb up in my direction before heading out the door. Okay, let's continue, Jake encouraged, sticking his hand in front of me. I think we should take a break. I'm not feeling it anymore. Jessie, you'll get it someday. If you want to practice some more, I'm more than willing to help you out. Jake, I'm not in the mood anymore, I said in disappointment, avoiding his penetrating gaze. I don't want that wound to worsen, especially with my added negativity. Don't give up. I'm not giving up. I'm just taking a break. I'm sure I'd get it sooner or later, I said, trying to convince him. It sounded like I was trying to convince myself as well. Okay, well, I'm just going to clean this up and cook something. Do you want anything? I shook my head, getting up and walking up the stairs. I decided to ask Harrison about what the hunters and rogues want as part of our investigation. After convincing Jake that I would be fine talking to Harrison by myself, he gave in and agreed to the idea. I was confident that Harrison would share the information with me because we were on speaking terms. He always used to tell me things that dealt with werewolf business. Therefore, I decided to give it a shot and ask him. Harrison, I called when I knocked on his bedroom door. It's Jessie! There was no response. I was sure he was home. His car was parked in the garage and he would have announced his departure, telling us to call him if anything went wrong. "Harrison," I called again, knocking on the door continually. When there was no response, I opened his bedroom door slowly. His scent crashed into me. Unintentionally, I let out a low moan. It was tidy and it was empty. A king-size bed with white bed sheets was pushed up against one beige wall. A small leather couch and a single beanbag was situated in front of a hanging, flat-screen television. The window across the room was draped with white curtains. Underneath the window was a desk with several papers scattered along the surface and a laptop in the middle. To the left were 2 doors that led to his bathroom and his closet. Before I could close the door and leave, something on his nightstand caught my eye. I walked in, shutting the door behind me and walking over to the picture frame. I scrutinized it with my eyebrows drawn together in confusion. In the middle of the black, intricate border was a picture of Harrison and me. My arms were around his neck, hugging him from behind. My smile was wide as he kissed me on the cheek. We were messing around, and Betty decided to take a picture of us with her DSLR camera. I was beyond confused. Why did he have our photo on his nightstand? Doesn't Sarah come in here? Has she seen this photo? What the hell was that foul smell? I scrunched up my nose when I caught a slight trace of something tainted. If I were a regular werewolf, I wouldn't have caught the scent. Being a healer, everything was heightened. Why did it smell so familiar? I decided to take a big inhale of the air around me. Despite Harrison's delicious scent, that slight trace was disturbing. My wolf was prancing around me. Before I knew it, my feet were moving around the room while I tried to find out where it was coming from. I knew it was wrong snooping around Harrison's stuff, but the scent was bugging me. I bent down near Harrison's bed where the scent was much stronger. I resisted the urge to gag. Looking under his bed, I saw something wrapped in a bunch of Harrison's clothes. I pulled out the pile of clothes and put it in front of me. When Harrison's clothes were in a neat pile next to me, a huge black box was facing me. The smell was stronger now, causing my eyes to water at its stench. I opened the box slowly. Then I threw it across the room, staring at it with horror-stricken eyes. My hand was trembling as I brought it up to cover my open mouth. Why did Harrison have a rifle, a case of 100 wolfsbane-laced bullets, and a wolfsbane-laced spear? Before I could hide any evidence that I was there and run out as quickly as possible, the door opened. Harrison stood before me, observing the weapons in the corner. "Jessie," Harrison asks cautiously, looking at me with intense eyes. "What are you doing in my room?" "What are you doing in my room?" Harrison asked curiously. "Jessie, it's not what it looks like," Harrison said slowly as I glared at him. Hot tears were streaming down my flushed face. I was angry. Scratch that. I was furious. What the hell was he doing with those vile weapons? There were many questions popping up in my head, but I couldn't bring myself to speak it out loud. Maybe I was assuming things. I don't know, but actually possessing those weapons instead of throwing it out did not make sense for a werewolf. "Enlighten me, Harrison," I said angrily. I motioned my hand towards the weapons in the corner. "Why the hell do you have those?" "Calm down," Harrison said cautiously, putting his hands up and walking towards me. "Don't touch me." I stepped back. Harrison flinched, returning his arms to his side. "Why do you have it?" I asked once again. "I have it because I found it during the attack," Harrison sighed. "I didn't want anyone to find out about it." "Why not?" I snapped. "Because they were going to freak out like what you're doing right now and they wouldn't hesitate to throw it out," Harrison answered. "Why do you have it?" "I've been trying to find a way to avoid being affected by these things when the hunters and rogues attack. I've been searching in every ancient book and talking to every elder, but I haven't found anything," Harrison said tiredly. I felt my anger diminish as I heard his reason for possessing the rifle, bullets, and a spear. Turns out, it wasn't only Jake and I doing our separate investigations. I sat down next to Harrison, contemplating whether I should tell him what Jake and I had found out. I chose not to. Jake wouldn't be too happy with me if I shared out information with Harrison out of all people. "I'm sorry," I said after a couple of seconds. "I shouldn't have assumed the worst. It's normal. Everyone does, right?" Harrison smiled tightly. "Anyways, what are you doing in my room?" I laughed nervously. "Well, I came here to ask you a question, but something caught my eye and I went to look at it. I'm nosy, I know. I've always been. Maybe that's when I caught a whiff of the wolfsbane. You know, healers have enhanced senses. I was being nosy again. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." Harrison cut off my babbling. "What caught your eye?" he asked, his blue eyes burning with curiosity. I felt the blood rush to my cheeks. Well, I found that." I stumbled to get the words out, pointing at the picture frame. I might be imagining things, but I swore Harrison's cheek had the slightest tint of pink. He scratched the back of his neck. "Oh," Harrison said after a while. "Yeah," I said awkwardly when he didn't explain further. I really wanted to know why he still had it. I mean, he did have a girlfriend. Wasn't he scared that Sarah was going to find it? Sure, I had a picture of us, but he had a girlfriend now. So, what did you want to ask me? He digressed. Okay, so I was wondering. I clapped my hands together and got down to business. What do the hunters and rogues want? What's that important? Harrison's face fell and he clenched his jaw. His posture stiffened. I'm sorry, but I can't tell you. Why not? I shot up to my feet, placing my hands on my hips. Only Brian and I know? It's classified information. It's better if nobody else knew, Harrison explained. Please just leave it at that. I want to help, I yelled. I feel so useless sitting here. You're not useless, Harrison said calmly. You didn't change, did you? You're still nosy, demanding, angry, stubborn, and a little psycho, he joked, smirking. I'm serious. I slapped his chest lightly. You're still violent. Harrison ignored my serious expression, listing down more of my negative features. You're pushy. You're controlling. Okay, shut up, I said flatly. Why are you so serious all the damn time? You're like an old librarian who owns 20 cats. I haven't seen you really enjoy life. You know what you need? Harrison got up from his bed, looking at me with mischievous eyes. What? I asked slowly, stepping back when he walked closer to me. He smirked evilly before quickly grabbing my hips in his hands and tickling me. You need to laugh, Harrison yelled in between my laughter. Stop! I managed to gasp out in between laughter. My embarrassing hiccups followed each giggle. I haven't laughed like this in a long time. It felt good. I missed that laugh. Harrison chuckled as I struggled to escape his hands. W. Harrison, I screamed when he squeezed my side. That's right, Harrison joked. Scream my name. You're such a perv, I choked out, slapping his chest. When he squeezed my side once more, my leg jerked, causing an accidental kick to his nuts. His hands immediately left my side, clutching his crotch. He groaned in pain, falling to the ground. I watched shortly with wide eyes before bursting into a fit of giggles. Oh my gosh, I gasped between my laughter and hiccups. I clutched my tummy, literally crying in amusement. That's what you get, Dot. You're going to pay for that, Harrison grunted, slowly getting up. I watched with horror before running away. I squealed, locking the bathroom door before he could push it open. I have the key, you know, Harrison said through the door. This is war. You're so immature, I yelled back. His shower head was big and the removable type. An idea popped into my head before I laughed mischievously. I stepped into the tub, grabbing the shower head in my hands and getting ready for my remarkable attack. I'm coming in, Harrison yelled. I heard the key jingling and the doorknob turning. When the door opened, I let out an Indian cry before turning the water on and spraying him. His face was priceless. His blue eyes widened and his mouth flew open in surprise. He put his arms in front of him. I'm the immature one? You're making my whole bathroom wet, he cried. I turned the water off while giggling. He stood there with his arms crossed over his chest. He was dripping wet, his thin t-shirt clinging to his muscles. His black hair was flat against his head and tiny drops of water were dripping off his chin. I would have drooled at the sight of him, but he was ready to attack. After staring at each other for a couple of minutes, Harrison said, You're going to regret that. I dropped the shower head in shock when he used his inhuman speed and climbed in the huge bathtub with me. Before I could grab it, he took it in his hands and turned it on. I squealed as the cold water pierced my skin. Harrison's laughter was cut short when I grabbed his delicious-smelling shampoo and squirted it at him. He let go of the shower head when the shampoo was about to drip into his eyes. That's expensive shampoo, Harrison complained. I stuck my tongue out at him, wringing my green sweater. You asked for it, I yelled childishly. Harrison sprayed me with the shower head once more, and I gave him a menacing glare. You don't play fair, he whined. I laughed when he almost slipped. Before I could pick up his shampoo bottle again, he pinned me against the wall and grabbed the bottle in his hand. He squirted it on my skin. It was starting to get sticky with every second my skin was drying. He started tickling me again, and I hiccuped. Okay, stop, I gasped. I give up. Truce? Harrison's hand stopped on my hips, but he made no move to remove it. His smirk grew into my favorite genuine smile as his blue eyes pierced into mine. I tried not to blush when I realized our bodies were flushed against each other. Although you wasted perfectly good and expensive shampoo, we should call a truce, Harrison joked. You smell like me. I stink, I joked too, wrinkling my nose. Harrison scoffed, but he didn't say anything. He just picked up a hand and softly pushed a wet strand of hair behind my ear. I almost closed my eyes from pleasure, but I didn't want to miss the way his blue irises were piercing into mine. In that moment, I forgot all my problems and I felt human. Harrison was the only person who could make me feel like a normal human. Although he was my mate, my wolf would leave me alone when we were in the presence of Harrison. She would be too busy bonding with Harrison's wolf. Even if it were just a couple of minutes, I basked in humanity. Sarah flashed in my head. You! No girl deserved to be cheated on, and I wasn't about to wreck Harrison and Sarah's relationship. I picked up my hand and trailed it down the side of his face. I didn't miss the way his head tilted closer to my hand, the way he gulped, and the way he looked at me with pain, passion, longing, and a ton of other emotions flashing in his blue eyes. Placing my hand flat on his cheek, I smiled at him. I think I should go, I said, swallowing the tears. Stepping out of the tub, I exited his bedroom with my heart aching.
I was so bored. Perry, Daisy, and I groaned simultaneously, causing Daisy to giggle. Jake was out with Andrew doing fun things. I knew they went paintball, went karting, and skiing. When I asked if I could go, Andrew looked guilty. He was trying to find excuses as to why I couldn't tag along. Jake bluntly told me this was a man day, and they didn't want any females to interrupt them. Apparently, they thought females were always burdens to what men considered fun. I simply stuck my tongue out at them and said they were jerks. Amanda did the same, glaring at Andrew. Nelson, Jennifer, Betty, and Brian went on a double date run. They asked if we wanted to go, but we turned their offer down nicely. We didn't want to feel left out. It also made us envy their perfect relationship. After all, my mate had a human girlfriend. Daisy's mate was in a mental institute. Perry didn't find his mate yet. We were completely lucky when it came to the romance department. Note the sarcasm. Harrison was doing some alpha duties upstairs, so that left the three of us moaning about how bored we were. We seriously had no life. "How's Scott?" Perry asked after thinking about a topic to discuss. "Fine," Daisy answered, throwing her platinum blonde hair out of her face. Her sapphire eyes showed concern over her mate. "He's doing so much better." "That's great," Perry said sincerely. "I haven't visited in such a long time." "I'll go soon." Jessie visited, Daisy said with enthusiasm. "She went with Harrison?" "You went with Harrison?" Perry asked with one eyebrow quirking up. "How'd you get him to go?" "And what happened to the War of the Exes?" Daisy punched him, casting him a warning look. I waved it off and just sighed. I'd practically dragged him there. "We're fine. We called a truce," I said. "I think he's going to visit Scott again soon." "Thank you, Jessie," Daisy gleamed. "Scott has been beating himself up over what he did to you and Harrison. As far as I know, he will never forgive himself for the rest of his life. When you visited, it was a huge weight off his shoulders." "It was for the best," I smiled, playing with Perry's rusted color hair. "So I can't help my curiosity. How are the two of you?" "We haven't mated yet," Daisy said. "He's in a mental institute. It's kind of weird to get it on in." "Okay, we get it," Perry said, covering his ears with his hands. "Nasty. I have more than enough with Nell and Jennifer." "Anyways," Daisy said, glaring at Perry. "We're just dating. That's all." "I'm lucky I haven't found my mate," Perry sighed. "What? You don't want to find true love?" I asked. Perry always seemed like the person who constantly looked for true love. I guess I thought wrong. "It's so complicated," Perry groaned, looking at me like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Femme wolves are such cheese." Daisy smacked his head. "You better watch it, Kavanaugh." Daisy defended the female population. "See?" Perry yelled, motioning a hand towards Daisy's angry face. "And you're really mean," I told him. "Maybe that's because you're already 19 and your heart is becoming colder every day you don't have a mate." "That's not true," Perry replied bitterly. He was lying. He was longing for a mate. He just didn't want to let us know because he was ashamed of his vulnerability. "So you're saying that if you found a mate, you would reject her?" Daisy asked. "No," Perry answered quickly. "I would not let her go through that." "Ah, so you have thought of finding your mate. You already know you'd welcome her with open arms," I teased, ruffling his hair. He rolled his chocolate eyes. "I'm just a gentleman, that's all." "I didn't know gentlemen called females excess," Daisy replied sarcastically. "I'm 1 in a million, sweetheart. By the way, Jessie, what exactly is going on with you and Harrison?" "Nothing. We're friends," I shrugged. "Just friends? How is that going for you?" Daisy asked with curious eyes. "Okay, I guess. It's going to be hard, but at least we were civil. Making him my enemy is too much drama." I hate to bring it up, but Harrison is obviously hiding some things from you, Perry said. Daisy gulped, averting her eyes. Harrison had many secrets, so I wasn't completely surprised. My eyebrows rose, and I simply asked, "Why do you think that?" "Well, every time he thinks he ends the link with us, he starts muttering things about you," Perry stated. "Right, Stace?" Daisy nodded. My eyebrows knitted in confusion with my lips slightly parted. I didn't know how to respond to that. What was he muttering? "What does he say?" I asked, contemplating whether I should hear this information or leave it as it is. He grumbles to himself about how much he's an idiot. That one's right. He put you through a lot of crap, Perry said. He'd say things about how he missed you, and the other day, he was going on and on about how good it felt to have you in his arms. I said awkwardly, feeling the blood rush up to my cheeks. He wasn't aware that you guys were listening? Sometimes you forget that you haven't put up the link block if something is bothering you, Daisy said, looking at me cautiously. He talks about you a lot. He'd cuss every time he realized we were listening, but none of us had the courage to ask him what was going on. Why would he talk about me? I asked. I felt the riot of butterflies in my stomach. My heart was pounding against my rib cage. You're his mate, Daisy shrugged. I guess. He has a girlfriend, I pointed out. As much as I hate to say this, but I think if he wanted to be with me, he wouldn't be with Sarah right now. He loves her, Perry said bluntly. Daisy smacked him across the chest. Unfortunately, that news was clear a long time ago. However, it still dimmed my mood and made me more depressed. But I think there is more to the story than Harrison is letting on. What do you mean? I have no clue either, but I feel like he's hiding stuff, Perry said. He's definitely hiding a lot, Daisy agreed, nodding her head. He's been different lately. What do you mean by different? He's been acting weird. He's been more moody and snappy, Perry answered for Daisy. Why? Wouldn't we all want to know? I sat there, trying to make sense of the information. There were many questions swimming in my head, but I had a feeling that Daisy and Perry didn't have the answers to these. They were as clueless and curious as I was. I think he's still low, Daisy began, but was cut off by the front door banging open. It was so loud, causing the three of us to jump a foot in the air. We looked at each other in confusion. Our eyes widened when we heard screams of agony, shouting, and the rushing of feet across the tiled floors. Something happened, Daisy said worriedly, getting up to her feet. Betty just linked me. What? I asked, gripping her arm. She just stared at the entrance of the living room with frightened eyes. Her face paled, and her lips were muttering words that I could not decipher. Perry's face was similar to Daisy's own. He got up to his feet as fast as he could. He was about to jump over the couch when the commotion entered the room. My eyes widened, and the sight in front of me made me dizzy. A loud gasp escaped my lips unintentionally. My hands started to tremble, and my body went cold. Nell rushed into the room shirtless, muttering something to Jennifer. Jennifer was in his arms, her small body covered in Nell's light blue t-shirt. She convulsed in his arms, screaming in agony. Nell shook, crying as he shouted orders at Perry. Betty tried to whisper comforting words to Brian, whose face was flushed. Tears were streaming out of his eyes. After he punched the wall hard, he tangled his hands in his blonde hair. Then my eyes flew to Jennifer's stomach, where dark red blood was soaking the cloth of Nell's t-shirt. She was stabbed, Nell cried, pushing Jennifer's hair out of her pale face. She's dying from the werewolf's bane. She was stabbed, Nell cried, pushing Jennifer's hair out of her pale face. She's dying from the werewolf's bane. Please help her, Jessie. Brian sounded broken, looking at me with bloodshot eyes. Please heal her. Everyone started yelling. They started shuffling around, grabbing blankets, water, and other necessities. Everything was a big mess, but it was drowned out by the favor that Brian had asked me. Please help her, Jessie. Brian sounded broken, looking at me with bloodshot eyes. Please heal her. Jessie, please, Nell pleaded. My chest tightened from how broken he sounded. Please, I'm begging you. I hated seeing Jennifer like this. She was one of my best friends, and I couldn't stand seeing her in so much pain, or stand the thought of her dying. I closed my eyes when she coughed, blood spluttering out. The commotion was much louder now. Everyone was helping as much as they could. I'll link Jake, I announced, frightened. He'll be here quick, trust me. We don't have time, Brian said, frustrated, pacing around the living room and getting angrier by the minute. You have to do it, Jessie. She's dying. My sister is dying. If I were even a tiny bit good at healing, I would have gave it a shot without thought. The only problem was the fact that I sucked at healing. If I risked it, her injury would have worsened and she would have died because of my mistake. However, if I didn't even try and she died, it would still be my fault. My head started spinning and my tongue felt like sandpaper. Sweat was spotting on my forehead and my head was pounding. I couldn't do this. Please, Jake said breathlessly when Jennifer's screams were coming out tiredly. What happened? Harrison yelled frantically, running into the room. When he saw the commotion, he threw his hand in his dark hair. And, ow, Jennifer ran ahead of us to show us something. That's when 2 hunters came out of the bushes and one stabbed Jennifer, Betty supplied with her voice quavering. She cried as she looked down at Jennifer. Nell and Brian finished the hunters while I tried to aid Jennifer. That's when we figured out that the wound was, Betty continued. She couldn't even finish her statement. Jessie, she's getting weaker, Brian screamed, motioning his hand towards his sister. Help. I might do it wrong, I replied, feeling guilty. If I try, it could worsen. I don't want her to die because of my mistake. Jessie, Harrison said, coming over to me and grabbing my head in between his hands. His blue eyes pierced into me. You could do this. Just concentrate. Please don't just stand there when you're the only one who could do something about it. She's dying, Jessie. Just concentrate. Breathe. You could do it. I looked at Jennifer. Her skin was so pale. Her eyes kept rolling back, but Nell refused to let her sleep. She moaned in agony. I had to do something. I had to try. Okay, I'll do it, I whispered, looking into Harrison's piercing blue eyes. You'll do fine, Harrison smiled, letting go of my face. Everyone went dead silent as I threw orders at them. Nell, I need you to lay her on the couch. Someone, please get water, a whole roll of napkins, and fresh clothes for Jennifer. I also need a first aid kit, I said, feeling much more confident. Nell placed Jennifer on the couch softly. She moaned softly in pain. Betty, Perry, and Daisy placed all the materials next to me in the next minute. Nell grabbed his mate's hand. Brian stood next to his twin sister, stroking her hair. Swallowing hard, I ripped the shirt where the wound was. There were a few gasps, including mine, when we saw the deep cut on Jennifer's flat stomach. Blood was gushing out of it. The wound was turning black from the wolf's bane. I tried to calm down as much as possible before I proceeded. I really didn't want to mess up. Instead of thinking about what was going on, I closed my eyes and thought of a positive outcome. I thought of Jennifer healthy and glowing, smiling and laughing. I drew in a shaky breath, placing my hands over the wound. I called for help from the ancient healers as I recited the familiar words and started the healing process. Lancetown. Lancetown. Lancetown, I whispered. I imagined Jennifer crying at the altar, smiling widely at Nell. She looked beautiful in her wedding gown. Lancetown. Lancetown. I imagined a wall in between a blooming tree and me. I imagined myself knocking it down and delicately caressing a beautiful golden leaf. Lancetown. I felt an unfamiliar warmth hum through my body. A jolt of electricity ignited in my fingertips. Lancetown. Lancetown. I imagined Jennifer telling Nell that she was pregnant. She laughed as Nell picked her up and twirled her around in excitement. Lancetown. The tree was glowing. A pure white wolf with a black heart on her forehead appeared, looking at me with proud green eyes. You could do this, my wolf encouraged. We were made for this. Lancetown. Lancetown. The words were rolling off my tongue. I imagined that Jennifer, Betty, Daisy, and I went shopping. Jennifer always picked out the ugliest things for us to try on. This time, she made me try on a feathery white dress that made me look like a chicken. She laughed with the other girls as I posed for them. Lancetown, Jennifer, and Brian were playing a game. Jennifer won. She rubbed it in her brother's face. Lancetown. The golden leaves were circling my wolf. My wolf opened her mouth, sucking in the leaves. Once she was done, it was dark. My wolf stared back at me. Open your eyes, she said with a wolfy grin before she disappeared. I opened my eyes slowly. The first thing I heard was a soft moan. My eyes widened when Nell and Brian sobbed harder. Oh crap, did I fail? My eyes fell to Jennifer's stomach. A thin scar replaced the huge wound. My heart rate decreased. A huge smile graced my face. I leaned back before saying, I did it. Oh my gosh, I did it. I couldn't help it. I jumped to my feet with joy. All of a sudden, I was being pulled into many different hugs. They were praising me for my work. I blushed at all the attention I was receiving. Thank you, Nell said, crying tears of relief. I choked from his tight hug. Thank you so much. Brian pulled me into his arms and I returned his hug. I patted his back comfortingly as he cried into my shoulder. Thank you so much, Dee, he mumbled happily. I don't know what I would have done if my twin sister died. I cannot thank you enough. It's okay now, I murmured back, smiling as I spoke the truth. She'll be fine. You were awesome, Daisy yelled in my ear. I flinched back and laughed at her. It was beautiful. I swore I saw sparks coming out of your fingertips. I saw them too. You did a great job, Jessie, Betty said, ruffling my hair. I knew she was a witch, Perry joked, but she wasn't as evil as I thought. I smacked him across the head. He grinned, but praised me for my work. I told you that you could do it, Harrison smirked, standing beside me while we watched Nell wipe the blood off Jennifer's stomach. It freaked me out when you started muttering something in alien. I had to be honest, that was kind of unattractive. I rolled my eyes before smacking his shoulder. I'm kidding. You did a great job, he beamed. Thanks, I said, for having faith in me. Before he could say anything else, Brian clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. Guys, Jessie officially learned how to heal, my friends shouted and clapped. I blushed once again from the attention. I shuffled my feet. Jake strolled into the living room with a pretzel in his hand. He looked down at Jennifer and observed everyone's proud faces. What did I miss? He asked, confused. We laughed at him. Jennifer was doing much better. She was a little sore and she had a fever, but her health was improving gradually due to her werewolf abilities. She felt like she owed me her whole life, but it wasn't in my best interest to look for something in return. I was the type to do favors for people because it was right, not because I was looking for a grand prize at the end of every good deed done. Jake was proud of me for discovering a way to connect with my healing abilities. His training had also become more challenging. However, I succeeded at most of the tasks he gave to me. I've also discovered a new ability. I tried it out on Jennifer, and her fever had gone down gradually. Jake was practically jumping up and down in excitement at my rare power. Apparently, I had the ability to better an illness, but only to a certain extent. After the 1,000th time of reciting the words repeatedly, my throat was as dry as sandpaper. I ended our training and headed for the kitchen. I went straight for the cupboard, reaching up on my tiptoes. In times like this, I cursed my short height. I smiled in victory when the glass cup was safely in my hands. Hey, a female greeted out of nowhere. I jumped a foot in the air, startled. I turned around, clutching the glass to my chest. Oh, hey, I said awkwardly when I saw Sarah sitting at the kitchen table on her cell phone. Sorry I scared you, Sarah apologized, putting her phone down. Oh no, I waved off. I just didn't see you there. I was focused on getting myself a drink. My throat is as dry as the Sahara Desert. Would you like something to drink? No, thank you, Sarah said politely. I'm just waiting for Harrison to come down. I sit down on the seat across from her. Although it was extremely awkward, it was rude for me to leave Sarah here by herself. I took a sip of my water, feeling the cool liquid slide down my dry throat. Sarah's phone dinged, slicing through the awkward silence like a knife. Sorry, she said, lowering the volume of her phone. I'm texting my mother. It's been a long time since I've talked to her. My parents are divorced. I was quite shocked with how easy it came from her lips. She didn't seem the slightest bit embarrassed that her parents weren't together anymore. It's all right, I said. You should talk to your mom. I'm sorry to hear about your parents' divorce. My parents were divorced too, I added when Sarah didn't say anything. It surprised me that I was being open with her. I guess it was because we had something in common and it was the only thing to talk about. I'd rather say the most embarrassing things than sit here and stare at her while there was an awkward silence between the both of us. They were? So they got back together? Sarah asked, folding her arms on top of the table. Not quite, I said, shaking my head. I couldn't believe I was sharing so much of my life with this stranger. My dad died about 15 months ago. Sarah's eyes widened, her lips frowning. She was pitying me. I usually hated being pitied, but I've gotten used to it. I'm so sorry, Jessie, Sarah said sincerely. I still don't know how to respond to that, I answered honestly, laughing. I don't know whether to say, it's okay, thank you, or I'm fine. Nothing relatively fits. Tell me about it, Sarah laughed too. Every time I hear that, I don't know what to say. So, you live with your dad? I asked. Yup, she says, popping the pea. They divorced when I was 11. Ever since then, I stayed with my dad. I would talk to my mother occasionally. Usually, I visit her at New York City over the summer. I love small towns. Big cities overwhelm me. I used to live in the city, I laughed. I moved to this small town 2 years ago. 14 months ago, I moved to another small town with relatives. I kind of like cities. They keep you busy. It helps you forget all the problems you're having. I'm attached to Lancetown, though. I grew up here, Sarah explains. All my family and friends are here. I'm afraid of letting that go. You must have a great family, I smiled. So, forgive me for asking, but why did your parents have a divorce? You don't have to answer if it makes you uncomfortable. I pursed my lips. After a couple of seconds, I simply say, he found out some things he wasn't supposed to and found a whore half his age. Oh, Sarah exclaims, that's tough. What about your parents? Reconcilable differences. Sarah smiled. They just lost feelings for each other. Oh, I simply said. It must be hard for a kid to see their parents divorce just because they actually didn't love each other. Are you an only child? Yes. What about you? I have an older brother. He's 21. He got married when he was only 20, but he's pretty sure that she's the one, I said proudly. It was always second nature for me to brag about Andrew. That's cute, Sarah smiled genuinely. What about your mom? What is she like? She's wonderful, I said honestly. She's truly a super mom. She does everything for us. She owns her own business. She's a fashion designer. My mom does truly do everything for Andrew and I. She would literally take bullets for us. Talking about her made me want to cry. I was proud to be her daughter. That's so cool, Sarah exclaimed. My dad owns a business too, but it's just a small shop in town. What store? I asked, sipping my water. The Big Shot, Sarah replied. I choked on my water, looking at Sarah with wide eyes. Yeah, I know. He sells guns for a living. It's something I'm not so proud about. Your dad is Aiden? I asked, alarmed. You know him? Sarah asked suspiciously. Yeah, I mean, I've heard about him around town. I heard he's a sharpshooter, I lied. Did Harrison know Sarah's dad was a hunter? Did he know he was the one who created those vile weapons? If Sarah found out what we were, we'd be dead in a second. Would she narc on her boyfriend? Was she undercover? She seemed sincere and clueless. Why the hell was the world so screwed up? I'm so confused. Yeah, he is pretty good with the guns, Sarah agreed. Did Harrison meet him yet? I know Harrison's into guns, I lied again. I wanted to know if Harrison knew what he was getting himself into. I couldn't stand to see him hurt. Yeah, Harrison and my dad get along pretty well. Harrison's my dad's favorite. My dad teaches him how to shoot at the ranch sometimes, Sarah says happily while I was anything but happy. My palms started getting clammy and my blood ran cold when everything started to click into place. The weapons I found in Harrison's room, the shootings he practiced with the one and only creator of the vile weapons, his girlfriend's dad, the werewolves that were teaming up with the hunters. The reason why he was putting his pack in danger, because he didn't want to give up something that was excessively valuable. The reason why he didn't want to give me an answer when I asked him what the hunters and rogues wanted, because he didn't have an answer in the first place. It was all lies. I felt my fist clench under the table, my heart aching at the hurtful truth. My eye twitched as I replayed the painful discovery in my head. There was no way Harrison was betraying us, right? Maybe I was overthinking the situation. Maybe I was assuming things once again. There was only one way to find out the truth, and I knew how I was going to get my answer. I should get going, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I plastered a fake smile. I almost forgot I had a meeting. It was nice talking to you, Sarah. See you later. Jessie. As I was on the way to the gun shop, a familiar voice called up my name. Jake, what are you doing here? Aren't you doing your basic training? Yes, I was, but when I was taking my rest, I came across this. Jake said as he passed me a list. It's a list that has all hunters on it. What? I exclaimed in surprise and took the paper. But if you are here to inform me about this, they could suspect you as a werewolf since you just left the training. Don't worry, I told them that I suddenly felt sick. Just have a look at the list, Jake said. With that being said, I started to read the name on that sheet. Aiden Price, Ronald Higgins, Paul Kearney, Samuel Walker, Fred Abbott Harrison White. I threw the sheet of paper with disgust and shock, tasting the bile in my throat. Without knocking on Harrison's door, I barge in angrily. He looked annoyed, turning his head away from his television show. His eyes widened and he stood up when he saw it was I. Jessie, what's wrong? His words were cut short with the sharp slap that caused his head to whip to the left. The contact was so loud, slicing the calm atmosphere like a knife. Although it was a solid slap, it did nothing to release the pent-up anger burning inside of me. It was silent. Harrison's head was still whipped to the left with his mouth slightly open. Shock was clear in his blue eyes. His cheek was turning red from the harsh contact. My fists shook beside me as tears furiously rolled down my cheeks. Why don't you just kill us already? I screamed when he didn't say anything. His eyes snapped to my face in confusion. What the hell are you talking about? He asked with his eyebrows drawn together. Stop playing dumb with me, Harrison White, I yelled louder. Jessie, calm down and lower your voice. Why should I? Nobody is home. I shoved his chest, causing him to stumble back a few steps. What the hell? He said, his deep voice rising. Annoyance was clear on his perfectly sculpted face. What is your freaking problem? Could you stop lying for once? Just stop it. Do you think I'm stupid? I found out your dirty little secret. I still don't know what the hell you're talking about, Harrison yelled back. Oh, please, I laughed sarcastically. First, I find weapons that could kill werewolves in your bedroom, Harrison. They kill your own kind. I waved it off because you told me you were doing an investigation. I was stupid to believe a petty lie. Let me ask you a few questions on your amazing life, Harrison. How is it dating the hunter's daughter? I bet it's superb and magical, but nothing could beat being in the hunting team. That's every werewolf's dream, isn't it? Recognition and fear swam in his blue eyes. He averted eye contact while he found something on the wall remotely distracting. I laughed sarcastically when his jaw clenched and he didn't respond. It makes sense now. Werewolves were teaming up with the hunters. Who knew an alpha would do that? You're clever, Harrison. So, here I am. Why don't you kill me now? Get it over with and just shoot me. I crossed my heart with my index finger. Right here. He snapped his eyes back to my face before a low growl erupted from his chest. Never say that again, Jessie. I wouldn't dare harm a hair on your body. You, I screamed, a new surge of anger pulsating through me. You're nothing but a liar. Why else would you be on the hunting team or own those weapons? You want to kill? Shut up, Harrison snarled. He tugged at his black hair. Just shut up, Jessie. You think you know everything, but you don't. You think you got everything figured out, but you're missing a big piece to the story. My mouth snapped shut on their own accord. After you left, I used to run every night to get rid of that sick and annoying pain. Harrison sighed. His voice cracked. He sounded utterly broken. He sat down on his bed, looking straight at me. One night, I shifted back. I was about to head home when I heard the sound of a gun cocking and felt the cold metal of a rifle being pressed to the back of my neck. Once the smell of the wolf's bane surrounded me, I thought I was going to die. I turned around and I saw Sarah. She was scared, holding the rifle in her trembling hands. I tried to convince her that I meant no harm, but she didn't believe me, of course. She almost shot me, but I made the stupid mistake of telling her I'd do anything. I had this idiotic mentality that you would come back to me one day. Harrison laughed nervously, scratching the back of his neck. I was happy he wasn't looking at me because my mouth flew open in shock. I was shocked from the story he was currently telling and the statement he just announced. Anyways, he continued, Sarah lowered her gun and asked me to do her one favor. She had a boyfriend who was abusive. She told me she broke up with him. He kept coming to her house when her dad wasn't home to beat the heck out of her. She eventually asked me to be her fake boyfriend to scare her ex away. I was a werewolf, so she thought I would be able to protect myself if this guy came after me. I agreed. I mean, I didn't want to die. She knew what I was. Her father was the maker of those weapons. She could narc on me and they would hunt me down. They would have killed the pack. After a few encounters with her ex, Sarah seemed to get a little clingy and attached. She'd show up everywhere. She'd call countless times. She came here one night when I didn't reply to any of her calls or texts. Betty answered the door and introduced herself as my sister. I tried telling Sarah that I wasn't interested, but she's a saking psycho. She threatened to kill Betty if I didn't ask her to be my girlfriend. I'd never live with myself knowing my sister was dead because of me. I didn't have much options, so I reluctantly agreed. I didn't want the pack knowing I was dating Sarah. She wasn't special. She didn't matter. I didn't want them to find out she was the hunter's daughter. But Betty made the unambiguous choice of introducing Sarah to the pack. After dinner that night, she wanted to have sex. Again, she threatened my whole pack. And me. It was practically rape, and it was hard. But thoughts of you kept flooding my brain, and the whole time, I was thinking of you. Just you. I was a pussy. I freaking cried. Could you believe that? I cried when I had sex with somebody that wasn't you. After that night, I wanted to kill her. It sounds horrible, I know, but she was crazy and I couldn't stand it any longer. I wanted to turn her in for practically raping me, but Sarah was pretty good at lying and I found out who her father was. Her father was the freaking maker of those weapons. She could open her big mouth to him and have my pack, and I killed in a matter of seconds. I was scared at first, but I decided to use Sarah as an advantage to investigate. I joined the hunting team, but I didn't do any hunting. I got rogues to team up with me and join the team as well. If they decided to attack us, we could attack them before they could reach us. I'll do what it takes to protect my pack and my family. I had a hard time digesting all of the information. A lot of questions were swarming in my head, but I had a hard time voicing them out. I didn't know which ones to ask first. I didn't even know what to say. The whole room was spinning. How could I not know that my mate was suffering? It was because I was too busy drowning in self-pity to even realize the pain of my own mate. I thought Sarah was a normal, average, real, and kind-hearted girl. Looks could be deceiving. She was nothing but a psycho freak. Harrison was right. I thought I knew everything, but I didn't. I assumed the worst from him, and I felt so guilty for not having faith in him. I trusted people I didn't even know instead of trusting the man I loved. Harrison's shoulders were slumped as he stared at his dark carpet with tired eyes. He was stressed, and he was in trouble. He couldn't do anything about it. Nothing pained me more to see him so helpless. I was so stupid and naive. He did everything to protect us, and everyone looked at him negatively because they didn't know the whole story. I mentally slapped myself for believing he was the bad guy too. After an agonizing long silence, I sighed. He was risking everything for us. I wanted to help him more than anything. Harrison, what do they want? I whispered. He still didn't look at me. Forget it, Jessie, he said without room to dwell on it. Just know that I'm truly sorry for everything. I gulped. Only now, I chose to believe it. I felt beyond guilty that he had to explain everything just so I could deem that his apology meant something. Everything clicked into place now. Why he still had our picture by his bed. Why he still looked at me with adoration. Why he spent so much time concerned over my feelings about my mother. Why he kept apologizing. I assumed he still loved me. I hoped so. I'm sorry, Harry, I whispered, playing with the tips of my brown hair. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for being an a-hole towards you. I'm sorry for Sarah. I'm sorry for everything and anything. We're both at fault, he said. He looked up, finally meeting my eyes. Do you still love me? I blurted, feeling the butterflies flutter furiously in my stomach. I felt like a 15-year-old whose crush just smiled at her. My heart pounded hard against my ribcage when his blue eyes melted. The answer was clear from the way he stared at me. More than anything in the whole damn world, Harrison smiled genuinely. I still lobe you, Jessica Turner, and I've missed you so damn much. I felt like I was floating when I walked to where he was sitting. I smiled brightly as I stood in between his legs, running my hands through his black hair and resting them on his neck. He wrapped his arms around my waist, pulling me closer to his body. I inhaled his scent deeply, pressing my forehead against his while I got lost in his blue eyes. I lobe you too, Dot, I whispered, smirking. So much that it hurts. I crashed my lips onto his familiar warm ones. The kiss was amazing. No adjective could describe this kiss. It sounded cliché, but it was the absolute truth. It left my toes curling, my taste buds craving, my stomach flipping, my heart racing, my head spinning, and my body tingling. The fire licking in my stomach and the heat that invaded my body were gladly welcomed. It made me realize how much I missed him and his kisses. Our lips moved in synchronization, molding perfectly together. I could feel his smile against my lips. He kissed me softly and passionately, showing me how much he missed me and how much he loved me. The intensity and the passion in our kiss made my heart burst with happiness. I suppressed a low moan when I felt him suck on my bottom lip, demanding entrance. I pressed my lips together tightly. He growled as I giggled. It turned into a full-out laughter when he tickled my sides. He laughed as he kissed my jaw and left kisses down my neck. When he reached my mark, I felt him smile before he kissed it softly. He stood up from the bed, grabbing my head. Bringing his lips back to mine, he slipped his tongue into my mouth. I moaned when it came in contact with my own. My hands tugged at his soft black hair. I was surrounded in his heavenly scent. His every touch was bringing fire to my body. If I could kiss Harrison forever, I would. He rested his forehead against mine when we both ran out of breath. Leaving a trail of heat and goosebumps behind, he ran his hands down my arms and interlocked our fingers. He brought my right hand up to his lips and kissed my palm. Gosh, I missed making out with you, Harrison groaned. Is that all you missed? I scolded with a fake glare. Well, I missed the sex too, Harrison teased. He chuckled as I slapped his chest. I'm kidding, Jess. I missed everything about you. You're too cheesy, lover boy, I smiled, patting his cheek lightly. Only for you. He winked and groaned again. I want to show you off. But that psycho is in the way. What are we going to do about her? I sighed, feeling my happiness go down the drain from our reality. Hey, Harrison reassured, tightening his hold around my waist when he felt me draw back from him. He tilted my chin up with one finger so I could look into his determined blue eyes. I'll deal with her. I want you. Only you. Mine, I whimpered, voicing the thoughts of my wolf. Harrison chuckled. Don't worry, babe. I'm all yours. I like the sound of that. I closed my eyes as he chuckled and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. Once again, both packs were cramped in the conference room. There were hushed conversations and friendly greetings as more people filed in. Children were playing games with each other, teens chatted animatedly, women gossiped, and men talked about men stuff. Jennifer stood close to Nell. Her eyes were trained to the ground as curious individuals glanced at her. No doubt have they heard the news. Betty and Daisy were offering cookies to the crowd. James, Clark, and Sam stood stiffly in the background, obviously uncomfortable for being on Avalon Pack territory. Perry was deep in conversation with his younger siblings. Jake stood next to me, playing Candy Crush on his iPhone. Brian and Harrison were looking through papers in the corner. Harrison caught me staring at him, and a small smile formed on his handsome face. I resisted the urge to pinch him when he linked with me. Like what you see? He asked arrogantly. Very much, I teased, deciding to joke around with him. I just want to rip your clothes to pieces and lick my tongue across those finely defined abs. I choked back a laugh when he turned a slight shade of red, shifting his weight to the other foot. He scratched the back of his neck. Too bad that'll only happen in your dreams, Dot. Harrison and I had been secretly seeing each other behind everyone's back for a week. Sometimes, our friends would get suspicious, but we'd wave it off. They didn't need to know we made out in his room late at night or we'd cuddle and watch a movie. Every time I saw Sarah, I resisted the urge to shred her face to pieces. Her sweet smile was sickening. When she put her arms or her lips on Harrison, I growled inwardly. Harrison reminded me it was all an act, and it was going to end soon. He kept contact with Sarah to a minimum, and he'd constantly apologize if she so much as held his hand. You know what they say, dreams do come true, he laughed. I rolled my eyes. If all of your dreams are that illusory, your dreams must never come true. That is sad. Yes, it did. I got you. I felt the blood rush up to my cheeks. A small smile formed on my face. Very smooth, lover boy. Stop talking to me, he joked. I'm trying to focus on alpha duties. A very mischievous thought raced through my mind, and we all know how much I loved to mess with Harrison. I knew exactly what swayed him and what affected him. I smirked. With the best seductive voice I could muster internally, I linked him. Yes, Alpha Harrison. In my peripheral vision, I saw him stiffen. He was looking at me. I could feel his gaze burning holes in my side. Through the link, I heard him growl lowly. You're evil. You're such a tease, Jez, Harrison groaned. What? Everyone calls you that. What makes me any different? I asked innocently. Coming from you, it sounds crazy sexy. Whatever. Just remember that although you're an alpha, I'm still your master. Well, I do like my women on top, Harrison joked. You are so nasty. Gross. You have a perv. You smell like him again, you know, Jake said, interrupting me from my conversation with Harrison. My heart raced in my chest as he said this. However, my face was set and my lie was already rolling off my tongue smoothly. Like who? Don't play stupid with me, Jessie. He rolled his eyes and sighed. I knew you two wouldn't be able to resist each other any longer. I don't know what you're talking about, I replied, observing my chipped nail polish indifferently. Fine, don't tell me. I really don't understand why all of a sudden you don't trust me anymore. Jake feigned hurt. I could tell. He was playing the guilt card, but I knew that a tiny bit of him really did feel that way. I gulped, playing with the tips of my brown hair. When you're ready to tell me, then I'll be there. You don't have to lie to me. I'd hate him, sure, but I would support your decisive. Fine, I huffed, feeling the blush creep up my cheeks. I crossed my arms over my chest, ignoring his penetrating gaze. We've been seeing each other secretly. He's cheating on Sarah? Jake asked. His eyebrows drew together in confusion. You're helping him cheat on Sarah? It's a long story, I sighed, looking around me frantically. I'll explain to you after the meeting. I don't want anybody else to hear. Promise? Promise. After a few more minutes, the meeting finally started. Good evening, Brian greeted the crowd, causing the hushed whispers to cease. Even the children stopped playing, listening to the alpha of the Raven Pack. The teenage girls gave him their full attention, obviously attracted to my best friend. Thank you all for attending our meeting today. We apologize for such short notice, but we have a very important announcement. From the way Brian said the last part, we all knew that whatever news was going to be shared wasn't good. Everyone in the crowd watched with fearsome eyes. Their attentions were focused on the two alphas at the front of the room. I will give the floor to Alpha Harrison of the Avalon Pack, Brian announced. He's truly been on top of his game and found out a lot of information that benefited our packs in many ways. The crowd clapped. My heart swelled with pride, knowing what my mate did and risked for both packs. He stood at the front with his shoulders squared, smiling gratefully at those who praised his work. Thank you, Alpha Brian, Harrison said in a deep voice. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes at the dramatic sighs coming from majority of the young females. The Raven Pack has a great alpha. He has done a lot as well. He helped out as much as he could. The effort and dedication he has towards his pack is admirable. The crowd roared with applause again. I never remembered both packs were this friendly. Brian and Harrison had obviously left high school behind them and started on a new page. It shocked me to see that the two men were friends. They no longer butted heads and disagreed on petty things. They were actually praising each other. There are no other ways to break the news softly, Harrison said with a hint of sadness in his voice. The crowd went dead silent again. Even the representatives wanted to hear what the alphas had to say. I've been anxiously waiting for some news on the problem at hand. Therefore, I am just going to announce it as simply as possible. Gulp. Alpha Brian and I order that all werewolves will lock up and keep careful for the next 3 days. Keep your family safe. That is all we ask of each one of you. The attack is unfortunately imminent. The representatives will be fighting in 3 days. After the announcement, a huge commotion broke in the conference room. The men wanted to join this fight too to protect their family. The females were frightened. The teenagers were quiet, but I could tell what they were thinking. They wanted to stay away as much as possible. The little kids really didn't understand what was going on. After all, they were so young. We, the representatives, were speechless. We didn't know how to respond to the news, but we saw it coming anyways. We knew it was bound to happen. We stood there, trying to regain as much composure as possible in front of the frightened crowd. However, I could feel the fear rolling off of each one of us. I would be lying if I said I were prepared. I was anything but prepared. Frightened wasn't even the right word to describe what I really felt. My stomach was hurting, my head was pounding. The more I dwelled on the situation, the more reality hit me. We could be dead any second. With one shoot of their gun in the right place, we would kiss our lives goodbye. We had to do this though. The only things motivating us were our family, the ones we loved, and the survival of our packs. We needed to do this. There was no thought of backing down for us. When Harrison and Brian had finally convinced the men that they were forbidden to fight in combats unless it was deemed necessary, they reassured the crowd that everything was going to be fine. Eventually, the crowd walked out of that conference room frightened nonetheless. Some individuals wished us good luck and thanked us for our bravery. Little did they know we were shaken in the inside. After the crowd left, that was when the representatives broke down. We were firing questions at nobody in particular. We were ranting aloud. We were sharing our anxiousness with one another. I guess it only enhanced the commotion when Harrison decided to explain the whole story to the representatives. I reassured him that they would understand, and they deserved the right to know what was going on. It took him a couple of minutes to say everything. He told them everything, including the news that we've been seeing each other. I guess I didn't need to explain to Jake after all. A blush crept its way up my cheeks when I received shocked gazes from my friends. They turned their heads to study Harrison, whose eyes were fixated on the marbled tiles. Their mouths hung open, and everyone looked absolutely bewildered. "Oh my gosh," Betty whispered. Soon, everyone had something to say about it besides Brian, who knew the whole story. "If I ever see that girl ever again, I will tear her to shreds," Daisy growled. "What the sake?" Jake muttered, not knowing what else to say. "Have you found a way to protect us from wolfsbane?" James asked urgently. "I always thought she was a sick." "I never liked her," Perry spat out, crossing his arms over his chest. "When the hell did everything get so eyed up?" Sam grunted. "Psychotic, desperate, disgusting, freaky. Ayash." Jennifer said every word with disgust. "I don't want Jennifer fighting this fight," Nell said eventually. We all stared at him. It was rare to see Nell so serious. If he was this serious, he didn't leave any room for discussion. "She's still ill." "I'm fine, you buffoon," Jennifer snapped. "I'm not even sick anymore. Thank you, Jessie, for your amazing healing abilities for the wounded and the sick." "Nell, seriously, I'm fine. I could fight. I want to fight." "Jennifer," Nell said painfully. "Dude, bro, stop hovering over her. You're her mate, not her father." James interrupted. "I used to think James was a smart guy. It was worse because he wasn't exactly Nell's biggest fan." He was very idiotic for interrupting a conversation between Jennifer and Nell, especially when Nell was in his serious mode. "Shut the suck up," Nell growled, sending a death glare to James. "I didn't ask for your opinion." "What are you gonna do about it, huh?" James snapped back. "Stop being so immature," Jennifer groaned. "You guys are so freaking annoying." He's interrupting a conversation he clearly has no reason to be involved in, Nell complained. "Bro, I'm just saying you have to respect her decisions," James replied. "Quit fighting," Brian growled at his beta. "This is not needed at a time like this." "Nell, I'm afraid the decision is up to Jennifer," Harrison sighed, slapping a hand on Nell's back for comfort. Jennifer grabbed Nell's face in between her small hands. She whispered some things that we couldn't hear. When he shook his head, she whispered furiously. She grabbed his hand before turning to look at us. "I'm in," Jennifer announced. "This is for our packs, for our families, for the ones we love." Nell didn't say anything. He simply just stared at the ground with his eyebrows drawn together. What exactly is the plan? Perry asked eventually. Are we just going to walk out in the open and wear signs that read, "Shoot me"? You're such a damn pessimist, Betty hissed while Nell smacked the back of his head. Excuse me for being scared, Perry snapped back. We were all in the heat of the moment. It was definitely a first time to see everyone bicker or snap at each other. I guess you couldn't blame them if there was an 80% chance of dying. We all are, I said, looking at everyone straight in the eyes. But we were chosen as representatives for a reason. We will stand by the sides of our alphas and betas no matter what, and we will have the strength to support our alphas and betas. Everyone stayed quiet after that. I sighed before saying, I'm pretty sure there is a plan. Yes, there is, Brian replied. Harrison made a plan early this morning. It isn't the safest plan, but it's the smartest plan. Well, what is it? Jennifer asked. You guys might not agree with me, Harrison groaned, but this is the smartest way to do it. We ask that you obey what orders you are given. Brian spoke for both Harrison and himself. If not, you will face the consequences of breaking the representative oath. We would hate to do that to you guys, especially since you are the sons and daughters of the representatives before us and have strength and agility that other werewolves weren't so lucky to have. We would also hate to do that because you guys are our friends. It's hard to let friends go, so don't let this get any harder than it is. Right, Harrison agreed with a slight frown on his face. So, if any one of you does not want to fight, please let us know now. There was a quiet silence. We looked at each other. None of us chose to back out, of course. We were stronger than that. Good, Brian said when everyone agreed silently to fight. Every one of you is vital to both our packs. We thank you for all you do. Why do you sound like you're saying goodbye? Daisy whispered. I'm not saying goodbye. I have faith in us, Brian replied. But even I was unconvinced. What's the plan? Jake asked, looking at Harrison. Remember how I told you that the rogues were working with me? Harrison began. Everyone nodded. Well, here's the plan. The rogues and I are going to be with the hunters when they arrive at our training spot. We will lead the hunters there. We've already convinced them that we saw werewolves in this area. As much as you guys will hate to hear this, we are going to try our best to not injure any humans. This is important. If we do harm or kill them, this will give the town reasons to hunt us down. These hunters have families too, and people who love them. It may not make any sense to some of you. You're probably wondering why we should spare their lives if they haven't even given us a chance. But that is why we are going to convince them that we mean no harm. We're not going straight for violence. Once you start war, it is hard to end it. We refuse to put our packs in that danger. We're going to make an agreement to live peacefully amongst them. Therefore, we will lead the hunters into the open field where we will all be standing in our human forms. It is risky. It isn't safe, but it's safer than approaching them in our wolf form. If they do try to attack, we have enough rogues to knock the weapons out of each hunter's hands. We have about 20 hunters and 15 werewolves. If they do shoot, that is where I trust you guys to use your werewolf abilities to move out of the way as quickly as possible. Be alert. Be prepared. If they do harm the rogues and you, that is when we attack, Harrison finished. We stared at him with our mouths slightly open. He wanted us to just stand there. That is practically signing our death wish right there. You want us to just stand there? Jennifer blurted out. Yes, Harrison sighed. I knew it would be hard to convince you guys. How do you know the rogues won't turn their backs on us? James asked. After all, nobody should trust a rogue. I agree with him on that, Nell added. The alpha rogue is my cousin. A bigger rogue group attacked his pack in Georgia. Out of 80 people, 20 made it out alive, Harrison stated reluctantly. We gasped, horrified looks on each of our faces. They diminished that rogue group, and those 20 werewolves have lost everything. They're going to join our pack. They heard about the hunters, and they want to help. There are no other ways to approach this situation, Clark piped in. We don't have time to think of another solution, Brian answered tiredly. Have you found a way to protect ourselves from the wolfsbane? Daisy whispered, looking at her feet. Obviously, the memories were still fresh in her head. Unfortunately, we cannot do anything about these weapons. Harrison tried to keep his voice even, but it trembled at the end. The only thing to protect us from the wolfsbane is ourselves. So be alert. Be prepared. I trust you, every one of you. When you're in doubt, remember why you're fighting in the first place. Good luck to all of us. It was late when everyone headed to bed or homes to get some rest. However, I doubt that any of us would be sleeping well tonight knowing that the attack was approaching. We couldn't even devour our dinner like we usually do. The silence at the table was sickening. We were all drowning in our own thoughts. It was the first quiet dinner that I had with the Avalon and Raven pack. Would we be lucky enough to have another dinner together? I refused to dwell on the outcome of the problem. The more I thought about it, the more I scared myself. What I should be focused on was the problem itself and how we were going to carry it out. I couldn't sleep. It felt hot and stuffy in my room. I tossed and turned, causing the blankets and pillows to fall off my bed and onto the floor. After several minutes, I groaned and walked out. Before I knew it, I came face to face with Harrison's door. Softly knocking on it, I whispered, "Harry, it's me." "Come in," he said. I opened his door slowly, inhaling his strong, mouth-watering scent. Worry lines creased my forehead as I saw him sitting on his bed with his head in his hands. I shuffled my feet all the way to him until I sat next to him. I couldn't find the right words to say. I didn't exactly want to tell him he shouldn't have to worry so much. That wasn't such great advice at the time, especially since I was worried too. "Hey," I said, playing with his black hair. I wanted to take Harrison's mind off this whole problem, even for just a few minutes. "What do you call a fat psychic?" "What?" he muttered, looking up at me. Under his blue eyes were dark bags. His peri-black hair was messed up, as if his hands been running through them all day. He was still in his clothes from earlier, dark jeans that looked great on him and a button-up shirt. I gave him a small smile. "A fortune teller." The corners of his lip twitched. He shook his head. "You're lame, babe. I'm cooler than we ever be," I joked. Harrison snorted. When he didn't say anything else, I spoke again. "I know this is such a stupid question to ask, but it never hurts to ask. Are you okay?" Harrison sighed, looking at me. There was a pang in my chest when I saw the broken look on his face. He looked away, staring at the carpet between his legs. "I'm freaking scared," he murmured. "I'm scared that my sister will get hurt once again. I'm scared that the plan won't go well. I'm scared to fail you guys. I'm scared to lose any of you. I'm scared that my mate won't walk out of there alive and it'll be all my faking fault." My heart broke. "Look," I said sternly, grabbing his face in between my hands. "It's okay to be scared, Harry. Just because you're an alpha doesn't mean that you have to shove all your emotions aside for business sake. We all make mistakes, and we will all stand by you no matter what. I will be okay. I'll make sure of it." "Promise me, Jessie," Harrison said seriously, rubbing the small of my back with his warm hand, "that you'll be okay." "I promise, Harrison," I whispered. "If I don't make it out alive, just know that I love you and I always will," Harrison whispered brokenly. "Don't say that," I gasped. I could feel my eyes water from the way he doubted himself. "Don't you dare say or think that, Harrison White." I studied his face. I traced my index finger down the side of his face, over his cheekbones and down his jawline. Finally, I touched the scar on his bottom lip lightly. "We'll be fine as long as we're careful," I whispered. Harrison didn't say anything. He just pushed his forehead against mine and stared at me with his intense blue eyes. I shivered as he pressed his lips softly against mine. He groaned as I bit down on his bottom lip and sucked on it. His hands gripped my hips when I granted him entrance. His tongue danced with my own, causing fireworks to explode on my taste buds. The warmth from his body was addicting. His scent was mouth-watering. I needed to get closer to him. There was too much space between us. There were too many clothing between us. Curse my perverted mind. But I wanted more. I brought one of my legs to the other side of him, straddling his waist. He grunted as I pressed our bodies flushed against each other. I tangled my hands in his black hair as his hands wandered down to cup my butt cheeks. I smirked against his lips when I felt his excitement. My fingers fumbled with the top buttons of his shirt. Once the first few were unbuttoned, he pulled off his shirt and threw it to the ground. He wasted no time in crashing his lips back on mine. I still couldn't get enough. I wanted him. My mark was burning. There was a throb between my legs. Harrison ran his hands down my bare legs. I shivered. He moved his lips along my jawline and down the column of my neck, sucking and biting. He nibbled on my earlobe before whispering, "Your scent is driving me crazy." I moaned softly as he sucked on my mark. I threw my head back and, involuntarily, I grind my hips against his. He growled, gripping my hips tighter and turning us around so my back was flat against the soft mattress. He hovered above me, pressing his lips against mine. Every kiss with Harrison was amazing. Every kiss felt 10 times better than the last. He showed passion, hunger, want, longing, love, and many more emotions with every brush of his lips. I felt him shiver as I ran my hands down his muscular abdomen. His warm hands roamed up my shirt. He was taking his damn time. He was teasing me. Groaning, I pulled my shirt off my body and threw it on the floor. Harrison looked at me with swollen lips. His blue eyes had darkened with lust and love. He stared into my eyes. "God, I'm the luckiest man in the world," he groaned. I laughed. "Gosh, I love that laugh," he muttered, nuzzling my neck before crashing his lips onto mine once again. He pulled away once more. "Jessie, if I'm pushing you, tell me. I don't want to risk losing you again." My heart shattered into a million pieces. He thought he lost me the first time, but that was entirely my fault. I let him believe that he lost me. It wasn't his fault. Tonight, I was going to prove to him that it wasn't him. Tonight, I was going to show him how much I missed and love him. Tonight, I'm going to show him I'm all his. Tonight, I was going to apologize for my mistakes. Tonight, I was going to make it up to him. I seductively bit my lip and motioned an index finger to come closer to me. I didn't know where this sudden burst of confidence came from, but I think Harrison liked it. He leaned in. I scratched his muscular back with my nails as I whispered some things that are better left unsaid. Let's just say I was telling him exactly what I wanted him to do to me. He pulled away when I finished whispering. His dark eyes widened, and if it were possible, they darkened some more. He growled before pressing his lips on mine hungrily. Soon, all of our clothes were on the ground, and he pressed his lips to my mark once again. "I love you, Harrison," I whispered breathlessly. "I love you too, Jessie, so much." He mumbled against my neck before entering. That night was amazing. It was 10 times better than the first time we made love. For one night, our minds were off all our problems. All that I could think about was Harrison.